Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever in the world you are watching, and welcome on in to the ATL Open featuring Rocket League qualifier number 2, powered by Skillshot. Of course, tonight, high octane action, a lot of returning names, returning faces. Of course, myself, Confused Caribou, but I'm not the only part of the animal kingdom here tonight. I am once again privileged to be joined by the brains of the operation, Bass. Come on in, welcome on in, and get in here because I can't do this without you. You are my crutch.
I think you give me far too much credit here almost every single time, Caribou, but I greatly appreciate it nonetheless. I'm happy to be back in the booth with you, brother. It's been a little while since you and I got to cast some Rocket League action, and this time, a little bit different than last time we were here. Previous Atlanta Open, we had 2v2s. This time, we come back and we've got 3v3s, a completely different game mode with some familiar faces, but a lot of new guys coming into this bracket as well.
Absolutely, and we talk about the difference in that format. Of course, the only difference really is that there's a +1 player on both sides of the ball. Still having the top 8 teams out of the 3 qualifiers. We've already got 3 teams out of last week. We're going to find another 3 here tonight. And then after that, next week's the last chance for anybody that does want to qualify. July 29th is what those finals are going to be coming in. Top 8 playing out in a bracket for the grand prize pool. There's a little bit of money that they can earn along the way here, but from what we've seen, a lot of these players and the returning names, there's obviously a few heavy hitters and a few contenders that we're going to be keeping an eye on here.
Oh yeah, a lot of really good teams that seem to show up after every single event, and while they haven't necessarily won it before, there are a couple people who have won it before, but there's also a couple who have had good results and are trying to sort of just up their results here in this 3v3 mode. Obviously, some of the frontrunners we've got coming into this one is going to be that Smokes team. We've seen Smokes come in almost every single event. Somehow this time, he's brought in names that I'm even more familiar with than last time with Kieran and Toxic, but regardless, I still think there's a lot of good shots for a lot of good teams here today.
Yeah, I'm very excited about everyone that is showing up. There is a particular individual that's on a vindictive team whose name is Caribou, and I may or may not be a little bit biased about that team for unknown reasons, but we can take a look at what we're going into right here tonight. Qualifier number 2. Another $200 total cash out from this, plus the top 3 teams that will be qualifying for the finals at the end of the month. And as I said, next week is that last chance, another little payout along the way. But it's not surprising, as you said, to see these teams showing up week in and week out, because sure, you can qualify. You can't qualify more than once, but you can earn money more than once. And why not make a little free money along the way?
Yeah, there's a little bit of extra money along the way here. As you guys can see, the prize pools have increased just a little bit after last month. 225 in total, 75 going to second, 150 going to first, and that is a significant chunk of change for every single team playing here today. You take first place. Every single player in your team takes home $50. And in addition to that, that's not just the only money they can win here, Caribou. If they qualify today, they qualify for that grand final, $750 on the line there, and that's going to be just an absolute battle. Every team we've seen so far has been incredibly impressive, and I doubt that us switching to 3v3 is going to make any difference. The caliber of talent here is going to stay phenomenal nonetheless.
Yeah, and I'm excited too about what's going to happen in this because of the sense that it is now the 3v3s, right? Of course, there was last week's qualifier that, we had already put on, and phenomenal competition regardless. You said it doesn't matter how many players are on the field, like it's still going to be great competition. But the difference here between the 2v2s and the 3v3s is you start to see some players in the 2v2s kind of get a little complacent and get a little overzealous in their commitments and just full send to the other end of the field because maybe you get a little bit stuck in the mentality that, oh yeah, there's I got a defensive player back. I can just full send, double commit to the front end. And oh, wait, no, never mind. There's not a third man back. Now you don't have to really worry about that because theoretically speaking, there should be a third man that stays home that kind of covers that, and you have to start to integrate these rotations. And that's what I'm very interested in, to see which teams are able to emphasize the rotations and stay on the same page and stay in good communication, because that is going to make miles of difference here in this event tonight.
It's going to be really interesting to see which teams are going to, really be able to make that adaptation, because I think there are a couple of teams here that primarily play 2v2s, or at least from what we've seen, they've mostly played 2v2s. The teams we've got coming up here today, the first 2 teams in Nocturnes versus Flying Freaks, we don't necessarily have a ton of background on them, so I'm hoping that they're going to be a bit more familiar with that 3v3 environment. But like you said, this is going to be one of these things where we've seen teams in the past be a little bit overly aggressive. They try to get into that attack, throw all of their defenders out the window, window, and all of a sudden they get counterattacked. That opportunity isn't really here today. I mean, it probably will still happen. Counterattack goals are almost inevitable in Rocket League, but they're going to be a lot more far and few. They're going to be one of these things where if you want to try and get a goal, it's going to be a lot more work and a lot tougher to try and take larger leads.
And of course, the thing that we see with the 2v2s is the sense of there's less players on the field. You can really open it up and spread out the game a little bit more, try to find those backdoor opportunities. This time around, you're going to have to be cognizant of the fact that there's a chance you might have 3 people in the box that you have to get around at any given time. So it's not going to be as easy to be able to break through those defensive walls. And offense, when you have the opportunity, you're going to have to capitalize on it. You cannot blow any chances whatsoever because every single goal is going to count. With 24 teams here in the competition tonight, it's not going to get easier. Starting round 1, we've seen some incredible teams that just RNG. The bracket's RNG'd at 6 minutes ago. So sometimes you get a couple of teams that theoretically are top seeds face off round 1. That just means everyone else, your competition is going to get that much more difficult as it narrows down, as you get closer to the finals. And of course, the top 3 of those, you got to hit that top 3 threshold because that's where you're going to want to be to make it to the end of the month, top 8.
100%. And I mean, we said this every single week. The truth of the matter is that as much as you can try to blame it on seeding, you can try to blame it on, oh, if we had had a different part of the bracket, we could have. You can't come here without the mentality that you're going to win it all. The whole point of this is you got to be the very best of the best. If you want to try and improve yourself, you've got to get that number 1 spot. There may be 3 spots available for that qualifier, but you're not really going to matter if you get number 3. You're going to hope you get number 1. It may not make a difference in seeding, but you're going to want that pride. You're going to want that money. You're going to want to sort of show to the rest of the competition what you are made of and what you're going to be able to do when that $750 tournament comes around. I think every single team here today is really going to give a good run for their money. I think we've got a lot of front runners in this one. Obviously, we've spoken about the Smokes team, who comes in here today with Toxin and Kieran, 2 top 100 1v1 players, because he apparently knows everybody in the top 100 at this point. But he seriously seems to come with an armada every single time he goes into these competitions, and I'm interested to see what other teams are able to really balance that out and give them a good run for their money.
And of course, watching the success that we've seen in the 2v2s, does that success translate into a 3v3 format? Are they able to adapt? As you said, that's going to be a huge key, the adaptability, not only just in the gameplay as the game progresses itself, but also in the sense of changing a style from a 2s versus 3s. So very curious to see which of these teams actually does step up, because as the competition goes, it's going to be very difficult for some of these players to be able to keep up with the pacing and the momentum that some of these teams are going to come out of the gate swinging. There is a little bit of a fine line you have to walk, because yes, you want to increase the tempo to try to get your opponent on their heels, but you don't want the tempo to go careening out of control where all of a sudden everything is just on fire and you don't know what to do and the ball's just going end to end. You're not getting any goals. Before you know it, well, maybe 5 minutes is gone. It's 0-0, 1-1, because there's no clear possession. So I'd like to see some teams be able to have that control of and capacity of the tempo of the game.
100%. I think that that's going to be a big thing here today, is breaking down that tempo and really controlling the pace of play. A lot of teams in 2v2 like to go Mach 10 speeds. They just kind of go the whole time. And a lot of these upper players, I'm friends with a couple of guys in the bubble scene, and they love to mention how 2v2 is really no mechanics. They call it no mechs for a reason, because it's very much about strategy and overwhelming your opponent. 3v3, sometimes you do get those opportunities to show off your mechanics. A lot of the times scoring a goal is purely because you have better mechanics than the other team in a certain instance. And, well, I think the players we're going to see here today on the pitch are really going to be those type of players. I think there's a lot of guys in this tournament, players to watch in terms of players I'm going to be looking out for. I hate to go back to that Smokes team, but it really is one of these things where Kieran and Toxic are 2 guys I'm very familiar with, and I don't really know them in a 3v3 environment. Like I said, they're top 100 1v1 players. They play ones. They play in an environment that is not the same as 3v3, and while they may have very good recoveries, really good offense, it's going to be about making sure that they can translate that into a team rotation. I actually had the pleasure of casting Kieran not even, I think, a week ago in a 1v1 competition where he did phenomenally. But what does that mean in a 3v3 environment? So he's really my player to watch right now, is going to be Kieran, as I think he goes by now. Last I knew him as Rob Kieran, but changed up the name. But name aside, I think he's still going to be a lethal player. The question is how lethal and how does he fit into a 3v3 environment?
Yeah, and I'll be looking at, of course, on top of Caribou for obvious reasons, looking at the team Pastizi, because Vela and Bungie have come back into this one and added Jake Farr with them. And Vela and Bungie together in the 2v2s had high levels of success, was a very good squad. So very interested to see what they can do in a 3 setting, because we know, and a conversation we've had a handful of times before, those Europeans for some reason are really, really good on North American ping. And exactly a thing that we're about to go into here in our first match between a European versus an American team, bouncing ping back and forth, sharing a server, game 1, game 2, but 2-1 in the other. That is a very interesting component and aspect that you have to deal with because of how used to playing on 100 plus ping are you, and can you handle that extra level of pressure? And some teams, as we've seen, just simply can't. And there's some teams, like the teams that are playing on the European side, for whatever reason, are good at 150 ping. Not only are they good, they're good enough to make it to like grand finals good.
Yeah, I mean, ping is one of these things where it's obviously going to be a factor, but at the end of the day, if you're just a strong team, you're a strong team. There's no two ways about it. You're going to come through and you're going to be able to do what you do. Maybe not necessarily hit those mechanics as much, but like we said, in a 2v2, it wasn't really as much about mechanics. Here we go to 3v3. Right. Mechanics are going to be a little bit more important. How are they going to be able to do it? And this first matchup is going to be no different. We've got Nocturne versus Flying, like we said. This is going to be the first matchup of the day. And going into this one, there's not a ton of background upon these guys. I don't really know any of the players on Nocturnes, but there is one player on Flying Freaks that does have my eye. Shout out to Junglies. Junglies is actually a bubble player from North America who has been really strong for a very long time. Now, the interesting thing is, this is the first 3v3 competition I've seen him in almost 6 months. The last time I saw him play was December of last year. So, as game number 1 gets underway, let's see what these guys have got. I keep my eyes on you, Junglies. If you can pop off like I know you can, this might just be your game to win.
And of course, to talk about going into this, a best of 3 until we make it towards the end of the night. But you lose one, you have a chance to redeem yourself in game number 2. And Junglies here on board with the player to watch, and getting a good center is going to be enough for Theory to get the shot on, and the first goal 30 seconds in. It looks like Nocturne has taken the lead.
Already 1-2-0 here, a good start, and this is going to be an important start for sure. Like we said, both these teams in round number 1 are going to hope to try and start off their day on the right foot. And really, that's going to start off with making sure that they can get momentum in their side. And a best of 3 like this, as much as you do technically have some time to try and adjust, you really want to come out the gates firing. And, well, Junglies has proven exactly that. 2-0 in favor of, I believe, the Flying Freaks here. Not sure if the colors are completely accurate yet, but those will be adjusted in a second.
Yeah, Flying Freaks actually in the orange, so I misspoke and I misled you, so that's on me. They are in the orange and with the 2-0 lead right now, 10 seconds after their first goal. So starting out exactly how they want to. And this is a thing that we've seen in multiple tournaments before, watching teams start out firing and make sure they can maintain that momentum, not only through this series, but through the rest of their playing tonight. Because sometimes teams just have a little bit of an extended break where they'll just start to fall flat. And starting out like this is right where Flying Freaks want to be.
They want to make sure that they can just give themselves a little bit of a buffer room here. They're about a minute into this game, already are up 2-0, and really, they don't necessarily need to score any more goals. They just kind of have to keep this pressure up. Even if they let in a goal from their opponents, they will still be up by 1. That being said, I don't think they're keen to stay at 2. They're going to try and continue this lead. First, they've got to get out of their own half. Finally, they do so. Here comes a flick straight to the center, where Nevis is going to be waiting. And while Nocturne didn't necessarily start off that fast, the pace of play has started to kick up here, and all of a sudden, Caribou, they actually are looking pretty matched with their opponents.
Yeah, they've had some good possession here in the last little bit. Had a few bumps of demolition right there. Just got to make sure their defense is able to stand. That bump's not going to come through, so the ball will bounce back towards midfield, where Theory will try to put it back into play. So yeah, this is certainly starting to get to that little back and forth here to see if they can find a chance. The Noise not going to let that one go in, bump it to the side, and a demo on AGX in the back. But Flying Freaks and Nocturne both really starting to get good possessions traded back and forth. It's just going to be a matter of, can Nocturne and company find their answer to get at least 1 goal back? And they do. AGX gets the nose on, puts it on target, and that is the one they needed almost on the halfway point. Down 1 goal now.
We said that there wouldn't be as many open nets and counterattack goals, but all of a sudden, one double commit out at midfield, and now Nocturne are back into this game. They've got over half the game remaining, plenty of time for them to try and get back into this one and even take a lead. Uh-oh, but they're going to need to make touches. AGX misses one on his own half, and this could be bad. Flying Freaks now prowling, trying to get themselves a third goal here. They take a 2-goal lead again, Caribou. It's going to be pretty difficult to try and come back, but there is at least enough time remaining that this third goal shouldn't be detrimental. Third goal does indeed find the back of the net, though, and Flying Freaks back up by 2.
Good initial effort by Theory, but just unfortunate. Too much on the hood to send it right back into play where the follow-up was going to put it in and across that line. So, yeah, that 2-goal lead you're talking about now is a phenomenal position again for the Flying Freaks. A little bit of insurance on top, but as good as the back and forth has been in the last minute and some change here, you certainly can't count Nocturne out, especially if we see another little mistake with the double commit towards midfield that gave them that first goal. 2 minutes to play, still plenty of time in Rocket League, but starting to see now in the last 60 seconds, there's a lot more time being spent on this side of the field.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Well, overwhelming pressure is the best way to put it here. The Flying Freaks have just been doing this on repeat. They've just been continually putting shots, continuing to put their opponents in awkward positions. And, well, a shot like that out of Illinois is almost inevitable. 4-1 here with about 2 minutes remaining. I don't want to say this is over yet, Caribou. I think there's plenty of time for Nocturne to get back into this one, but they need to focus on clears and just getting out of their half. Like you said, they've been locked in for quite some time. This is unfortunately going from bad to worse, though, as all of a sudden, 5-1 now. Off kickoff, Flying Freaks get another.
And that's just a nice little feint to be able to follow that one up and looking for the full power and maybe expecting that ball to come in a lot faster than it really did. Just enough of a backspin on it, chip it up over the top, keep it out of play. They're going to get one more off the kickoff as well. Theory's going to get that one on the open. Nobody stayed back for defense, so make it 6-1 now. I think that's going to make 12 shots on for the Flying Freaks, and that is a number that is always something I will harp on. If you are able to hit a double-digit amount of shots compared to only 2, 3 on the other side, let me say you probably got a pretty good chance of winning.
Yeah, at a certain point, pressure is going to be more important than accuracy. I've seen this before, and I think you have as well, Caribou. There are teams that thrive on making sure that when they take a shot, it's going to be a very accurate one. And then there are teams that, well, they'll just take as many shots as they can, and eventually something will hit the back of the net. And that's what we've seen out of the Flying Freaks here. While their accuracy has been pretty stellar, it's more about the fact that they are just continually putting shots on their opponents and continuing to press the issue. And as this game wraps on up, I think they might even find themselves a 7th goal here. Can they slot this into the back of the net? No, denied and cleared out. But once again, Flying Freaks pretty definitively are taking game number 1, but I still think game number 2 is in the possibility for Nocturne. They don't necessarily look out of this game. Oh my word. Well, actually, they may be out of this game. They're not out of the series, though.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly will agree with that. Because of that 60, 80-second span in the middle of the game we saw, it was a good back and forth. They finally started to figure out where everything was going and how to kind of break down the Flying Freaks attack and make the ball go across midfield and start to put their own possessions together. Since then, it's been a full breakdown, and to a point, it's understandable because you just think, okay, yeah, we're out of this game. It's done. Nothing's gonna happen. Theory's gonna get the double touch off the wall, make it the 8-1. Nocturne, I'm sure a couple of minutes ago, recognized they're not going to take this game, but they're going to find a way to bounce back, strategize, and theory craft now what can they do in game number 2 to be able to answer back and put us in game 3.
Again, I think it really does all start with that defense, making sure that when they break out of their defense, they actually have a plan in mind. This is another thing that we have seen a lot in the 2v2 scenario, and it's starting to make a little bit more sense that it's also arriving here in 3v3s as teams who, they make the save, they get out of their own half, but once they do, what are they supposed to do with it? Junglies apparently knows exactly what to do with this, and this is sort of why I highlighted him earlier. He's a solo player who knows exactly what to do in every instance. Quick to pop this one up, quick to get it around the defense, and a 9th goal for Flying Freaks. Not that surprising. The surprise here, do they get 10 goals? Do you think they hit double digits here, Caribou?
Yep. Quick and easy. Yep.
That's both of which
that's it.
Major stat. But there is a final note that we.
Ooh. Well, they did. They did it exactly as you said, Caribou. They get to 10 goals here. Took them about 10 seconds or so, not as long as you might have expected. But you know, the outcome not really going to change much. I think we knew that Flying Freaks were taking this after about the 2 or 3 minute mark. But I still do think, despite this ending, which was definitely not in their favor, this still looks like a series which Nocturne can keep themselves in it.
Yeah, and it's just a conversation point of, okay, so how do they adjust into game number 2? You know, what is the difference maker going to be? Do they just try to slow down the offense of the Flying Freaks? Do they try to break and make a quick attack going the other way? We saw them capitalize on a mistake the Flying Freaks made with the double commit. Is that something they have to do to try to force mistakes from the other side? Because right now, they're not creating any opportunities on their own behalf. They have to simply play reactive to everything the Flying Freaks are doing, and that is why Freaks are going to take game number 1 with a 10-1 score line here, and that is a convincing fashion for them. A whole slew and then some of shots put up. 12, 17 shots that they just put up with 10 goals. That's quick math. That's pretty good.
It's a pretty solid stat line across the board. It really does seem like Flying Freaks, once they found their flow in that game, they just kind of started to dominate. It went from a little bit of momentum to a lot of momentum to overwhelming momentum at a certain point. And the question, like I said, is what do Nocturne change? And I think you and I have both posed this question and pretty much tried to rack it around in our brain as much as we can. I still think it's got to be a lot to do with their defense, but at the same time, defense is only one half of the equation. Once they do break out of their defense, how are they going to be able to translate that into offensive pressure? I mean, we're going to have to find out. We can speculate as much as we want here, Caribou, but the truth of the matter is that if there's any sort of momentum that goes in favor of Freaks at this point, I feel like they're just going to run away with it.
Yeah, and while they have time to think about what they want to do, we can take a look at the replays from game number 1, where it was a whole lot of scoring on one side of the ball. It was a 10-1 finish, and it started pretty early on. 30 seconds in, they got the first one. 10 seconds later, they got the second. After that, a little bit of that back and forth play up till about that 240 mark, and then that's when the Flying Freaks really started to pour it on. They just got one after another, where the defense could not just get anything together. Of course, all of our highlights and replays tonight going to be powered by Microsoft ATL. And a huge shout out to be able to see this spectacular firepower the Flying Freaks just showcased for us.
Yeah, this really was a lot of really nice goals in a row. The truth of the matter is that some of them could have been a little bit more preventable, but this is sort of where the mechanics start to build into a 3v3 environment, is that once you do get a good opportunity on net, you kind of have to do the most with it. In a 2v2 scenario, you do get a decent amount of shots. Some of them may not go on target, but that's sort of the point of 2v2, is that if you do have an attack that's all-out offense and all of a sudden your defense is abandoned, you're going to get counterattacked. In 3v3, you can afford to press a little bit more, to start taking some more shots and really press the issue. And if you do have a good shot, it better be a good shot. There's no two ways about it. You have to make sure you're hitting the corners. You have to make sure you're doing something spectacular. And that's a lot of why the Flying Freaks were so good in this game. We saw many scenarios where there was a defender there or someone to at least approach the ball. But when it came down to it, the offense just beat out the defense.
And I would like to see on the other side, as we talk about the defensive step from Nocturne, what they have to do, a little more organized chaos, if you will. Because at that point in game 1, it just kind of seemed like it was chaos. Maybe loosely organized. Rotations were slightly prevalent, but not quite enough to really shut down what the Flying Freaks were doing. As you said, some of them may be more preventable than the others, but just didn't really see a lot of that consistent flow, watching players rotate in and out of the box, try to get a clear out, try to find something to create their own opportunity, create a counterattack going the other way, because the Freaks, the amount of pressure they put on, there had to be windows of opportunity that Nocturne really could have cleared it out, got something going the other way, make a quick strike, if not set something up on the other end. And at the point, maybe they've realized it, maybe they figured out what their strategy is going to be, because game 2 is going to be kicking off right now. And this is the do or die here for Nocturne. This is their last chance, backs against wall, down 1-0 in the series of a best of 3. We'll see if they can find their answer here.
And I still do believe that they can keep themselves in this game. A goal to start it off would absolutely help them momentum-wise, and they might just find themselves an opportunity here. AGX in a 1v1 can't make the touch in the corner, though, and an easy dribble out here just to delay time, enough so that everyone on Flying Freaks can get prepared. And this is also a little bit of the difference right now. I do feel like Flying Freaks are, just a bit more composed, but apparently composure doesn't really matter. AGX finally finds the back of the net, and Nocturne's with an early lead.
Yeah, a little bit of a mistouch there by Lunoy in the corner is going to be stolen away to give the center right for AGX to get the shot on. A little defensive miscue from the Flying Freaks, and That's something to start here for Nocturne. They just able to find mistakes and create their own opportunities. That is an answer to look for. Going for double touch off the wall. Theory did it last game, tried again, this time unsuccessful. But now they are immediately putting the pressure on here, this side of the field. 45 seconds gone, only the one, but can Nevist find a way to get a relief valve and put a counterattack together?
Well, they're trying to right now, but once again, Nocturne actually pressing the issue here, just keeping this pressure on the sides and out at midfield, controlling the pace of play, and hopefully this should give them at least a little bit of breathing room and a little bit more confidence against their opponents, but they do have to be careful. A double commit there has left them at least a little bit vulnerable. They'll survive for now and actually take it the other way, but Flying Freaks are not a team you want to start showing a lot of mistakes against. It's proven that they are a lethal team and one that can pounce pretty quickly, so if you start giving them the opportunity to capitalize on mistakes, eventually they're going to start doing exactly that.
Yeah, looking to see if these 50s are going to go through. Nevis going to get credit with the save there and a miss on the follow, but it will get pushed aside on the double commit, and that's one of those organized, chaotic plays. You see that we're watching Nocturne almost get away with. That one's teetering on the line, will not go across. AGX, the savior and the hero so far, keeping that one out and responsible for the only goal we have seen with 2 minutes passing by. This demo on the backside. Watch the Freaks on the counterattack. Played off the wall, watch the putback. The noise gonna get that one, making up for the miscue on defense a couple of minutes ago. Is gonna put it across the line, back of the net. Game's tied at 1.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about. Just one little defensive error, and the Flying Freaks were absolutely going to capitalize. And one lack of a touch on the backboard, and all of a sudden, it's a tie game once again. 3 minutes remaining here, though. Plenty of time for Nocturne to try and get back into this one and force a game number 3. But they really did need to capitalize upon that initial goal and try and run with that momentum. Allowing Flying Freaks to get back into this one in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion, is a mistake.
We'll see as we hit the halfway point if either team's going to step up and get advantage in this one. Currently, AGX trying to maintain this possession has been doing a lot of work here in this series and making at least good name. Junglers with the flip reset, as you said, a very talented solo player, and we know the mechanical skills are going to be there for a solo chance here to get it up and over. No defense back. That shot's high, so Theory won't get that, but the putback from Junglies is going to find the mark, and that is going to be the advantage to the Freaks now, a 2-1 lead.
And this is why we keep mentioning how much defense is going to be important for Nocturne there. Once again, a lack of a touch off that backboard pass, and all of a sudden, Flying Freaks are up by 1. It really does feel like Nocturnes have to be on their A game right now. If they make any sort of slip up, Flying Freaks are right there to capitalize. And oh my word, almost able to capitalize off that double touch off the backboard. Theory not quite able to do so, but Junglies will have an attempt of his own. And now we're back to a familiar place here, Caribou. It's Flying Freaks with overwhelming offensive pressure, and goals like that are almost inevitable.
Just starting to see it develop, and both of us recognizing that this is about to be a constant rotation of shot after shot, setup, pass, played off the wall. Something's going to happen where it's just going to keep going until that ball gets in the back of the net. It did not take them long. Now with a 2-goal lead here, we'll see if Nocturne can find their answer. Just don't let the momentum from the Freaks start to build up here, as they're already starting to apply that pressure, already feeling that groove, knowing that they are a minute 40 away from moving on into the next round here with a 2-goal lead.
And they're doing a really good job so far here. All they have to do is survive another 100 seconds, or maybe they'll actually score another one. Double commit in the air, but it doesn't seem to slow them down, as all of a sudden all 3 players get involved and Flying Freaks find a 4th.
Just the nice little chip over the top. The backflip not enough from Ajax. Couldn't get high enough. Theory was able to get it over the defense. And then at that point, just tap it in. It's an easy putt right there. 3-goal lead, 90 seconds to go. Flying Freaks are in flying colors, looking like they're trying to advance to round number 2 and start out tonight's competition with the banger and with the W.
Yeah, they might just be able to go pretty deep into this competition. Like I said, I had some questions about how Junglies was going to be able to do after a really long hiatus from playing any sort of competitive play. Like I said, the last time I saw Junglies in an event that was notable enough to get on Liquipedia was in December of last year, when he was competing in RLCS and trying to get into RLCS regional events. I think he did one in winter of last year when he was on Lost Not Found or something similar to that. Actually, I think Empty Space. But now all of a sudden we see him almost 7 months later, and his team is absolutely dominating in round number 1. They have the potential to go deep in this competition, Caribou, especially with such a convincing win here in round number 1.
Yeah, already seeing a handful of teams moving on into that second round. Nocturne and Flying Freaks trying to fight to get into that one, but the Freaks right now in complete control of this, and they look like they're in a really good spot to advance not only to this one, but as I said, you start building this momentum here, you don't want to have to wait. And the fact that this team is in a position now where they don't really have to wait too long, because it seems like the second round's starting to fill out. So you won't have that weird pause in between games, in between series. The comeback goal here is going to make it a 3-goal deficit, 40 seconds to go. It is absolutely feasible that Nocturne could pull something off here, but they have to score on basically kickoff immediately for both this and the next.
I don't think that was the team you were calling a score on kickoff, though. I'm pretty sure that's the other side of that one. Flying Freaks putting in a 6th, and I hate to say it, Caribou, but I think that might be the dagger. 4 goals in 36 seconds. It's possible, but highly unlikely.
Not looking too favorable for Nocturne. If this is a League of Legends reference for their team name, then it's starting to get real dark on that side. And it's nothing that's good that's happening here. The Freaks, as I said, flying into round number 2 after a stunning performance. 10 goals game 1, at least 6 here in game number 2. This is a phenomenal start to your competition, just knowing that you're firing on all cylinders, your teammates are working together well. At this point, they're just burning clock. There's just not a whole lot they have to worry about here, maybe any extra garbage time possession. But starting out with 16 goals in your first 2 games is a huge stroke of confidence here for your squad.
Especially against a team that, I have to remind everybody, Nocturne looked extremely competitive in the first matchup. For the first half of the game, it was not out of hand whatsoever, and eventually it did get out of hand to the point where Flying Freaks very confidently became the favorite in the matchup. But they were a team that really did give them a good run for their money, so Flying Freaks being able to not only adapt against a team that strong and then just keep with that adaptation, but then take, like you said, 16 goals in 2 games. They've got confidence on their side. They've got a lot of momentum on their side, and I hope that that carries them far, because they're a team I really do want the chance to cast again and see again later in this tournament.
Yeah, and I'm excited in the sense of looking at knowing we have these offensive firepowers to come in, and we have just such a phenomenal showcase, because I love high-octane, high-scoring games. Don't get me wrong, it's fun to see a 2-1 nail-biter, but, like, if I'm watching a nail-biter, honestly, I want, like, a 9-8. You know, I'm looking for low-scoring football games. That's what I'm looking for here, but still able to get themselves in a spot where they can put up 16 in 2 games is a phenomenal start for the Flying Freaks. I'm very excited to see what they can do progressing through this one, especially knowing, as we've already mentioned, some of these teams that are coming in, especially with Smokes trying to defend the title from last week. Smokes ended up winning the first qualifier, so coming back here in this one, try to come away with another first-place victory. As you said, money's nice. You know, first place is making a statement, right? That you want that first place statement to go through tonight's competition. You get the money in first, you get money in second, you get third, you qualify for the end of the month, but you don't get any money. And well, I guess it's a kind of a consolation. Like, okay, we made it to the grand finals, but I kind of wanted the money.
It's a little bit of one of these things where, again, I know it's going to sound like a broken record at a certain point, but you're here to get first place. You are here to show that you are better against the rest of the competition, and that as much as, like you said, getting a little bit of money in your pocket's great, getting a representation at the end of the month is great, but you're here to prove to the rest of the competition what type of team you are. And that's why Smokes is back this week. That's why I think that whole team is back, is because they're not here to try and win some more money. The money would be great, but they want to show everybody else that's competing, hey, we're top dogs, and even if you get through this one, you're going to be waiting on us at the end of the month. And if you can't get past us, well, sorry about that. That's just how it is. That being said, the 2 teams that we've got competing in the next round, I think that they might both have a good run for their money. And one of them is some familiar faces here. We've got Sheesh coming back. This time, Sheesh, though, a little bit different than last time we saw them. I'm not sure if we actually saw Vigil, Tone, and Nate on stream last time we saw them, but they were in competition. They made it to, I believe, quarterfinals. And now this time, they're trying to win it all. They're a very strong team, and I'm looking forward to seeing them play on the pitch today.
Excited to say the least, because of the sense that we know what they're capable of, and knowing what they're capable of showcases that this is probably going to be a really good match. On the other side, the Brave Ostrich facing off against them. I mean, another one of those teams, Not a lot of information on the backside of it, but looking to see what they can do in this. It's a round 2 matchup, our first one that we'll be spectating here. I'm sure there's more going on in the background because unfortunately we can't show you everything that's happening. There's 24 teams here in this one, and we've had competitions where there's like 80 teams, and I don't think you want to watch a 70-hour stream of 80 teams playing 2v2s, but so we got to get things progressing here. But this is the first round 2 matchup we're going to see, and watching Sheesh and Brave Ostrich face off in this one, very excited because of the familiarization we have with some of these players, some of these teams. We know what they're capable of, know kind of what to expect out of this, so we can get right into the kickoff here because this one with round 2 coming on, 24 teams though, that means this pool is getting real small real quick, and it's a very small chance for you to get into the top 3 because you got to beat the best, and you got to beat them very early on in the bracket.
Yeah, this is one of these things where that random seeding, it could come to help you, it could come to haunt you. And at the end of the day, no matter what, you have to do the most with it. And doing the most with it, I think, is already going to be Sheesh as they go for a passing play in the air. Oh boy, all right. Like I said, I don't know if you've had the pleasure of seeing Sheesh on stream before, Caribou, but get ready. You're going to be in for a treat with the expertise and aerial prowess that this team carries.
I feel like I probably should have had dinner before I got a treat, but I'll try not to spoil it because this is going to be something that I am very excited to, because the sense that, well, now you're kind of setting the bar pretty high for them. So if they don't perform to expectation, this is absolutely your fault.
That's fair.
You now take
I get it.
responsibility
I'll
for
take
that.
full blame. Yeah, no, I'll take full blame. I totally get it. That being said, already we're seeing Sheesh. They have overwhelming offensive pressure. If we thought that the Flying Freaks were going to have good pressure in the last game, well, apparently this one, they're going to show them how to do it. No real shots registering on goal here, but just overwhelming aerial attacks on repeat here. Sheesh, I think, are going into this one looking to stunt. I don't know if they're going to go for that high-scoring game like we saw the Flying Freaks. It might just be, hey, can we hit a couple of clips along the way?
And we know they're completely capable of it. Watching this one just bounce on the line is going to be pushed aside even after the follow-up. They can't get that one, but they're still here to keep this one not only in possession, but that didn't even cross the midfield line. And I'm not sure if we have crossed the midfield line yet. Okay, well, not as soon as I say it, it does, but it's a shot on just a little wide to the right. MC is not going to be able to get that one, but watching Nate Vijal just completely fire away, and Tone with the setup here, trying to get this into the corner, play it off, play the bounce. These guys just look so in sync. Nate with the upper 90 dot after a beautiful layaway from Tone is going to give them the first goal and give them the lead here.
Oh my word, this was perfectly shot into the top left corner. The defender in net just a little bit off the line, and well, that little bit off the line was enough for Nate to shoot it right where he needed to. 1-0 here in favor of Sheesh, and honestly, that's probably the most standard of the goals we're going to see out of this team today. I don't think I necessarily need to prove this any further, considering Nate's going for a double touch off the backboard, but this team really does have a high caliber of skill. I've seen them compete against some of the best teams in the bubble scene, and it's going to be because of all 3 players on the team. Nate, Vigil, and Tone are all very strong players. As we can see, they can do whatever they want, wherever they want.
Just maintaining possession, maintaining that pressure, and that's something that we both touched on before we started watching any of these games. In 3v3s, who's going to be able to set the tempo, who's going to be able to control the pacing of this game, and that is all Sheesh have done for the first 2 minutes and some change. They've maintained possession, they're in complete control, they are dictating what the defense is doing. The defense is just simply in rotation to try to keep this from crossing the line, and there's been a couple balancing on that line, but they just haven't quite come across yet. And as you said, that first one probably going to be the most simple and basic goal that we see, because there is a lot of that clip-worthy potential here from any one of these players. Nice pass off there is going to be off the deflection from the defender, but still find its way under the crossbar and put them up 3-0 just past the halfway point.
Tone pre-jumping for that one, knew that pass was going to make its way through, and part of the issue we're seeing for Brave Ostrich right now is the fact that they're a little bit flat-footed on defense. Against a team like Sheesh, you got to get in their face. You got to be annoying to a certain degree to where you just don't let them set up intricate plays like this, and unfortunately right now it does seem like they're setting up some intricate plays. Tone once again with a pre-jump to find the pass to the center, and that's sort of what I mean. If Tone's going to be up like that and you know he's pre-jumping, bump him out of the way. You may not necessarily be able to, oh my word, get a touch on the ball when it's moving that fast, but you can hopefully at least interrupt them. No interruption this time, though, and Sheesh will go up by 4.
Yeah, Tone just played that one from way back off the wall and laid that up perfectly for Nate to just pitch and catch. And basically taking it off the front bumper. Now with the 4-0 lead here, I mean, sheesh, they've been in control. They're maintaining control, and this is exactly kind of what we would expect out of this one. Brave Ostrich have had decent rotations to be able to kind of slow the offensive attack a little bit, but not nearly enough to be able to get a clearance out and try to find anything going the other way, almost reminiscent of the garbage time out of that first series game 1, where it's a 10-1 scoreline. It's just playing damage control at this point. And what Sheesh have done, Brave Ostrich have a very small fire extinguisher in hand, but there is a very large fire on this field right now.
That is almost an understatement to a certain degree. Brave Ostrich need to also get them some firepower as well. They need to find some sort of shot on target here because like we've seen, there have been breakaway chances, but the unfortunate truth is that Sheesh's defense is just too quick and way too reactive, and all of a sudden where Brave Ostrich should be able to get some shots in, like right there, they're usually getting beat out by the defense. This time they do have some momentum on their side. Can they do anything with it? In their opponent's half for quite a while now, but again, no one's going to attempt to attack here. This is what I mean by getting in the way of your opponents. If they're going to be transitioning across that midfield line, send someone to attack them. You can't just give them free reign, or otherwise, sheesh, you're going to go right back into their usual and try and find themselves a 5th goal.
To the point, like, this game has almost entirely been played on this half of the field. Vigil going for a flip reset right there to lay it up for the teammate, try to find something out of the air because there's not enough momentum that Vigil had, but just watching the bouncing and the reacting of what's happening in front of this net. There's a lot of time being spent in the box, a lot of time on this side of the field. Ostrich just haven't had anything to be able to clear it out and put anything together going the other way. And you can see in the point that Sheesh are not even just attempting to outright attack over and over and over again. They're playing to set the ball up, trying to play to pass it off and trying to get those assists and bump those numbers up, rookie. Either way, without having to play on the outright attack, they're still able to walk away with a 4-0 win in game number 1. And Sheesh is playing exactly like the 1-2 Tone with 7 shots on goal. I can only imagine what the rest of the numbers of that one were, because that was an impressive performance for a game 1 that we see out of Sheesh tonight.
Yeah, that was an extremely impressive performance, to put it simply. And this is also an interesting thing. These guys remind me of a team that I think I casted this one with you, Caribou. I want to make sure on this one, but do you remember the Freestylers by chance? That was a team that I think played way back. I want to say 2 tournaments ago or something like that. It was probably Atlanta Cup or Atlanta Community Open number either 1 or 2, where we had a team that was a freestyling team. They came into this one hitting some super intricate shots, really, really all over the place. But by the time that it came down to it, they started to find some issues against teams that had a little bit more solid of a defense, so a little bit more reactive of a counterattack. And right now, I know that Sheesh are a very good team. Like I said, I've seen them compete in other events before, but can they do that here today? Right now, they're hitting some pretty unique goals, and while they might just be able to pass Brave Ostrich, we've mentioned it. There's good teams in this competition. They've got to be prepared for when the level steps up just a little bit.
Don't get me wrong, we love flashy plays. We love those highlight reels, or, put it in the VOD and get yourself out there to try to get signed as the next RLCS star. But being able to have that standard fundamental offense is kind of where it's going to go and boil down to, see if they can put something together. At this point, right now, watching what Sheesh have done, they can get away with it now, like you said. But when it comes down to it, they're going to have to know when to flip that switch and be like, okay, we have to, actually play standard Rocket League and put together normal attacks to break down the opponents. But for the time being, if you can get away with it, why not? Do something, make you feel good, get the morale up, boost the confidence. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm always one of those people that I love to mention, how much momentum plays into Rocket League. A lot of other esports, yes, momentum does play into it, but there are points where you can try and break momentum. You can try and get yourself back into the game, and it does seem doable. Rocket League is one of those games where when momentum goes far enough in someone's favor, it becomes very difficult to slow them down, and, well, I guess Sheesh don't necessarily need other momentum to slow them down. They'll just miss a couple goals in front of Ned. 1 minute into this one, and Sheesh apparently, they won't take your standard goals. They have to hit angles like that.
I get it. You're having fun. But now, after seeing that vehicle choice from Vigil, I am no longer having fun. That's all. Why must you put me through this?
Well, I hate to tell you this. He's not the only one
Nate
playing
did
in it.
too.
Shout out to Nate. There's 2 battle buses on the pitch
no.
right now. Get ready. I know you didn't expect to be casting Fortnite, Caribou. I know that's a different title you normally cast, but I think you might get a little bit of a blend here today. Crossover, if you will.
I thought I had ditched my image as a Fortnite caster, but it just keeps coming back. I just can't get rid of it, and here it is once again haunting every waking day. But if they're gonna make it work, then by all means, as I said, if you could find a way to flaunt it, build the confidence, build the morale, have a little fun with it, do it while you can. This is the instance that they can do it here, I guess, because of how they feel after game number 1. This one a little closer, only got the 1 so far, but now gonna make it 2 after the battle bus, the Battle Bros connection. 1 to the next, they're gonna get their second goal and put them up 2-0 with 3:12 to go.
I appreciate that you figured out the Battle Bros connection before I could say it, because I was about to call them the exact same thing. And, well, we might have to just call them that for the rest of the day here. Most likely, they're not going to stick to the Battle Bus for this entire tournament, but
No.
let's let them get some
I hope
clips in
not.
the meantime here. I mean, yeah, listen, if they do, you know, shout out to Nate, Vigil, and Tone. I believe all 3 of them follow me on Twitter, and I will give you a shout out if you complete this tournament in only Battle Buses.
No one in their right mind should do that, or would want to do that. But hey, if they can, I wish them the best of luck. We're going to get one back. MCM is going to take that one into him and get a strike back. So down a single goal now here, watching the rotation come back. Those buses just a little too slow to come back on the defensive rotation after the commit up front. But they're going to have to find out what they can do here, because maybe 1 goal is just a little too close for comfort. See what they can do to try to get that insurance back.
They're going to try to. I think that we might see the real test of what Sheesh is made of right now. They might try to go for something a little bit more. Okay, never mind. No, they're still going for shots that are crazy. All 3 players commit onto offense here, and as a result, they leave themselves vulnerable on the other end. But apparently, vulnerability is not enough. Sheesh are not going to get punished for that, and I gotta wonder what happened there. Brave looked like they had a completely open net.
Real missed opportunity right there, and one you're going to be kicking yourself over if it does come down to that difference. And I mean, after giving that up, now a 2-goal deficit for Brave Ostrich, and 2 minutes to play, still plenty of time, and still seeing the confidence from Sheesh after a 3-man commit again in the air in front of the net, making sure that that's going to go in. Sheesh is just exuding an enormous amount of confidence right now that they can get away with this unpunished. And well, after seeing a potential missed opportunity with an open net, I can't say I blame them entirely, but there's a very real chance that this does come back to bite them here for game 2.
Yeah, there's a possibility, especially with 2 minutes left. The Brave Ostrich very much could get themselves back into this one. Oh my word! And apparently luck is going to be on their side as well. All of a sudden, another shot rings off the bar, and Sheesh at this point can't seem to buy a goal. They're trying their best to get another one in here, even if it is, you know, via stunting. At least they're trying their best to give themselves a little bit of safety, but the bar are going to be in their way. Maybe they can get something together here. Vigil going to pass this one out to the center. No one's going to be home, though. And unfortunately, Nate and Tone playing a little bit more defensive here. It does seem like the pace of play has shifted, though. Sheesh playing this one a lot more seriously than the first half of this game.
And starting to just recognize the sense that, frankly, by their vehicle selection, they're a little bit outclassed by speed. They're a little too slow to get back, and as you hard commit to the other end, the only one that really can is going to be Tone, who's going to be able to get themselves in a position to find that defensive counter and make sure that they don't give anything else up. But with 45 ticks to go here, they're still on the right side of the field. They still have that 2-goal insurance lead. They had chances to go the other way from Brave Ostrich, but Sheesh, at this point, just have to make sure that they don't give anything up. Just try to take care of business, try to close this one out, and move on into round number 3.
trying their best to just keep this one a-flowing here. We got about 30 seconds, and I really do think that this one's already wrapped up because if she do focus on only their defense, they seem to have a solid enough defense. Tone smacking into Nate there in their own corner is definitely not the defensive prowess and defensive posture we might be hoping for. Vigil smacking it into his own half is also probably not that. Maybe Sheesh are just trying to hold on to this ball here. They might be doing a little bit of free play in a competitive environment where they just keep it to themselves and try and waste time, and they've successfully done so. Even if we see a late goal for Brave Ostrich at this point, they will only bring it within one. Unfortunately, it is out of the realm of possibility, and Sheesh will dominantly take the series and move on to round number 3.
Battle bus has showed up, and hopefully the battle bus has departed. I don't want to see any more buses in this event ever, but thank you for making that very brief appearance, and you can see yourself out now. She's taking the 2-0 series to move on into the quarterfinals, where there's already a couple of teams waiting, including Smokes' squad. Take a look at some of these replays from Sheesh's performance here, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. And as we saw, game number 1, complete control, complete dominance. That ball very rarely crossed that midfield line.
Yeah, it just didn't happen that often, and when it did, it almost always was at the defensive errors out of Sheesh. Very few times did it feel like Brave Ostrich really pushed into their opponent's half, and that's sort of the thing to note about this entire series here. It's like we said, Sheesh are a team that, in my opinion, they remind me very much of the Freestylers, and a team that are very flashy. They're very good. We can tell they've got the mechanics. We can tell they are high-level players, but at what point does that high-level play start to get challenged? When do we start to see teams that really push them to their limits and no longer let them do all of these fancier maneuvers, and they have to really play like a traditional Rocket League team? And I know all 3 players can do so. The question is can they do it here today? Everything seems to be different in a competitive environment, Caribou. I think you know this best out of anybody. You can do great in scrimmages. You can do great in ranked. But when it comes down to a competition where money is on the line, everything seems to be just a little bit different.
Yeah, just a little extra amount of pressure because you just have that on the back of your mind. Like, we're not even only just playing for some ELO or your MMR or whatever you happen to be playing for. This is just something extra because you can actually use that money for something. And let me tell you, when gas prices are hitting $4.50 a gallon, hey, that $50 sounds pretty good. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's not even a full tank for me, but I'll take $50 for sure. And that's just something else you got to think of. It's on the back of your mind, that little cash prize, because that is that extra added incentive. And then you also get bragging rights, of course, too, because coming into top 8, you know, when you get to this, you said to be the best, you got to beat the best. Top 8, you have to beat everybody here today, because that's going to send the message going into the grand finals at the end of the month that, hey, we've already beat you once. We'll probably do it again.
And they just might be able to do so, but we're going to have to find out after a little bit of a break here. We're going to make sure that all the teams are ready for this next round because, like you said, it's pretty much all familiar faces from here on out, so we're going to have to wait and see who pops up back on stream here. We're going to take a little break, like we said, get everything set up for the next round, but when we return, it will be round number 3 here of the Atlanta Community Open. You guys are not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, one and all, welcome back here to the ATL Community Open featuring Rocket League. Confused Caribou joined alongside from Best from the past. Hopefully he can see the future to know who's going to win our next matchup because, frankly, I need your abilities from just casting and knowledge and future foresight. Can you offer that?
I will try my best here to give you a little bit of my cryptic knowledge into the future and what we might hold in store. But I can tell you what, I know exactly what we're going to see from the last couple of games. We've had two teams which have absolutely dominated here today, showing us some really impressive goals along the way. And, well, we've got some replays from those guys powered by Microsoft ATL. Like we said, so far the two teams that have made it through are the Flying Freaks and Sheesh RL. Some familiar faces on the Sheesh team, but not as familiar here on this Flying Freaks team, which dominated in the first series of the day.
Oh, absolutely. Putting up 16 goals in their two games, the first one being a 10-1 final scoreline. You could just see here, after so much praise you gave to Junglies for being such a good individual player, wondering what the actual in tandem team would look like. And, well, yeah, they looked really, really good. Theory really stepped up to help out in that one as well, where Nocturne just could not find an answer on defense to be able to slow them down and stop them. So watching the development here of the Flying Freaks going in through their matchup, we have 4 or 5 teams that have advanced into the quarterfinals at this point. Still waiting to see if the Flying Freaks are going to be joining in the quarterfinals here. But just what we saw in the first series, round number 1, that team looked so good. And then when you get to the second one, a much more familiar name and much more familiar team who was just trying to showcase, and we thought we were going to Misty Meadows, we're dropping Slurpee, we're playing our Fortnite, because game 2 was just, frankly, they deserve to apologize to everyone that had to watch that.
My man's is not a fan of the Battle Bus anymore. You have moved on past Fortnite and have decided to never go back to it. And, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with it for at least one more day, because all of a sudden this Battle Bus Bro team has dominated, like you said. They really did a great job of just showing the prowess of that team. And like we had mentioned before, Vigil, Tone, and Nate are not players that we're unfamiliar with. We're not players that we are surprised to see do well. But we're surprised to see them do it in such a stunting fashion, especially considering it was round number 2. They had already passed a round 1 team. So these guys are going to be a really strong team. And like you said, it'd be surprising to not see them go the distance here today, or at least go pretty far. But there's a lot of good teams still in this competition. Speaking of which, we've got 2 good teams coming up next. We've got Parody versus Seaside. And while I'm not as familiar with the Seaside team, I can tell you what, I am very familiar with all 3 players on Parody.
And I'm excited to watch another, matchup here, especially quarterfinals. We're starting to boil down to where this is the good competition. And yes, if you can get away with playing a battle bus ×2, do it while you can, when you can. Because once you get down to quarterfinals, semifinals, you're probably not going to want to stray away from your traditional vehicular choices. Don't expect to see many of those one-off selections getting down into this one, because this is now getting to the nitty-gritty where there's a limited, finite number of players and teams that are going to be qualifying for the grand finals at the end of the month. And you have to win this series here to get to a chance to try to qualify. So there's no more messing around, no more Mr. Nice Guy. We're getting into our first series in the quarterfinals. Who do you think, your familiarity with obviously one side, do you think they're going to have enough to take out the W in a 2-0? Do you think we're going to see a game first time tonight?
A 2-0 might be a little too aggressive for my own liking. I do think that this is a very strong team, but Seaside are a team that I'm slightly familiar with. Not 100% on every single player, definitely not to the same degree as Parody, but I do know they're a pretty strong team. So if this goes to Game 3, I'm not going to be surprised in any way, shape, or form. And to be honest, I'd love to see a Game 3. Game 3s are always such an exciting thing, especially when you know that it's such a close 2 teams. Oh, my word. But Xeria is going to show us how to stunt.
Just watching that one off the wall, playing it through, and getting that touch on, getting past the defense, and doing it in style. What a way to start this. 32 seconds in, they get their first goal up. Parody's taking the lead, and a good back and forth that we start to see. And we talk about the tempo, the pacing, and who's going to be in control of this one right now. Parody starting out aggressively, keeping the ball in the box, had another chance there, but get deflected to the side. But they are not letting up anytime soon.
No, they are just continuing to put this pressure on, and where Seaside, we knew they were a strong enough team. They've really got to get some momentum in their favor. Someone's got to touch this ball out at midfield. Plenty of time and space being given, but somehow no one from Seaside approaches. Excuse me, we're about 4 minutes into this one, and I'm losing my voice because I'm just a little bit confused here. Seaside really should have a goal on the board right now.
Absolutely expected to be a 1-1. They had a couple of chances there to try to find a break, but instead, still down 1. 3:40 to play in this, and watching what they can put together on the counterattack. Xeria challenging is going to keep this one around midfield. Ski's going to follow it up, put it in the air, look for the center, who's already pre-jumped, already trying to find the angle, does not. It's a swing and a miss. Instead, will bounce to the corner, possession back to the C side. See if they can find a counter on this. Midfield boost is taken. So Antic's going to be coming back around to watch this play develop. Fizzle out around midfield, and going to go back the other way towards parity, where, again, trying to find these aerials, trying to find these predictive passes, but not quite finding the success that they're hoping for.
Yeah, not quite yet. They're trying to give themselves some sort of momentum in their favor, but we've kind of got into a little bit of a, oh wait, hold on. I was going to say a stalemate, but Antics is going to make me eat my words very quickly. Double touch off the backboard here, solo play, and that Season 1 Silver Tournament winner might be a little bit underestimating his skill.
Still able to find ways to improve to get yourself to this point, and we've all been there. You had to start somewhere, but here we are. Significantly seasons later, and significantly better, I would say. Ski's going to take a little ride on the rooftop, try to find a reset, watch the defensive rotation back. That challenge is going to take this back out towards midfield. The demo at going to keep this one around, start to push it into the corner. We hit the halfway point, and that 2-0 lead is minimal between two teams as capable as both of them. Relatively even on both sides, but Xeria's going to get another shot on. What a save coming out. Just barely able to save that one. Almost came all the way across the line. Now with the counterattack, but is going to be, unfortunately, mishandled just past midfield and go back the other way.
We're starting to see Parity are definitely playing their opponents a little bit more smart. They started this game a little aggressive. They started this game a little bit flashy. Definitely not as flashy as the last team we saw in Sheesh RL, but definitely flashy enough that they're starting to slow down and play this a little bit more methodically. Like we said, Seaside are a strong enough team that you don't necessarily want to take too many risks against them. At 2-0, they have comfortable lead, but not a definitive lead here. With about a minute 45 remaining, there is plenty of time for Seaside to get back into this one, especially with a good breakaway like this. 50-50 out at midfield. Can they get a follow-up touch? No, lack thereof it, but all of a sudden, we've got an open net. Black Boxes, as I will call them, because we're not sure what the name is, has scored, and Seaside cut the lead in half.
Able to just get that on the open net, and it started with, as you said, that open chance, the opportunity to get themselves in a position. A little bit of a 50-50 there at the midfield, but they're able to get one back after the black box comes through, and there's no defense rotation to come back through. So 90 seconds to play, a single goal up over the top. Parity still trying to find something out of the air, trying to pitch and catch between them. Ski's going to take this individual over the top, not going to be allowed to score that one, and sent back outside, gets the demo on the other side as well. But they're still maintaining this and still trying to get themselves in a position. And in case you missed it, round 1, round 2, we're in the quarterfinals. We'd like to welcome all of our new viewers on the Xbox channel. We're here for the ATL Community Open. This is our second qualifier in the quarterfinals. Game number 1 in a best of 3, and we have a hell of a series on our hands.
Indeed we do. It is 2-1 with only about 15 seconds remaining, and Parity, the overall favorites here in this matchup, is all of a sudden looking like they've got their backs against the wall. They need a little bit more breathing room here. A third goal might just do it. Xeria's got an open net. Can they slot it? Right. Yes, they can. 3-1 here, 40 seconds left, and that might just be the dagger here, Caribou.
39 ticks. Only a couple goals. There's still a chance. I'm not going to rule it out yet, but this is exactly what they are looking for here, trying to get a little bit of trash talk up there as well, and I love to see that, and I'm so happy to see that because it just adds a little extra spice, a little extra flavor on top. But with 30 seconds to play, that 2-goal lead right now, as close as this series has been, as good as these two teams have played, this is just the beginning of this. Game 2 is going to be just as good, and for the first time tonight, I'm with you on this. I do feel like we will see Game 3 in this series.
I'm hoping we see a game 3, because if it's two teams that are going to do it, it's the two we see right here. Parity, while they have had a pretty strong game number 1, Seaside have been in this game. They just need to start taking a little bit more advantage of their opponent's mistakes. We've seen open nets, we've seen some defensive lack from Parity here, but Seaside just haven't taken advantage of that. As the game wraps up, Parity do take the win indeed, but like you said, this is a game that really could go to a best of 3 and go the distance here. I really do hope that it goes that far, because what a treat it would be to have our first series here on the Xbox channel go all the way to 3.
And that's just not only a gift for us, but a gift for everybody else. We can take a look at the replays out of this. For everyone that did join late, you can see what you missed in the first few minutes. Of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. We started out pretty quick, 32 ticks in. Xeria got 1. Antics followed up with the second, but then we found an answer back pretty close towards the middle stages of the game. It's just such a great game from Seaside and Parity both, because especially with that chat in there, please tell me y'all aren't actually trying. Like, that's just a subtle comment like that from the losing side of the game. It just adds a little extra spice to game number 2, because now you expect, okay, they're down 1-0. This is where Seaside's going to come out with nothing held back and potentially just try to kind of stick it to the man, send a message.
Yeah, they're going to try to take advantage of all of those little mistakes. Some of those aerial plays that we saw in game number 1, where we saw some little bit of extra stuff, not necessary from Parity. I think that is going to be a lot less viable in this game. I think there's going to be a lot more challenges in the air. There's going to be a lot more interruptions out of the other team. And Seaside, if you want to win, that's kind of what you've got to do. You've got to keep that pressure on, got to make sure that your opponents are not comfortable when they play on this pitch. And, well, it does look like we got a quick chat to start this one off. Demon Time coming from Black Box is one of the the only player to score on Seaside last game. So let's see what they can do here in game number 2. Parity up 1-0. They win this one, they move on to the very next round, Caribou. And while they may be the favorites going into this one, it's going to be a little bit more difficult when Seaside are definitely going to try and continue.
Definitely going to be gunning for their comeback story here in this. Only took 32 seconds for saw the first goal in game 1. See if Xeria is going to be able to do it again. Will get denied by Finesse. It's sent the other way. Ski's going to catch us, put it to the corner to Antics, but that's going to be a little bit of a missed touch. Unfortunate there's no follow coming from midfield. We're going to go back the other way. Ski's going to try to set Xeria up. He's going to put the nose on. Instead, we'll bounce into the corner looking for something. It's a lot of just kind of fumbled possessions, a little back and forth. Not a lot that is too clinical and too clean, but just waiting for that singular break point where one team is going to find that angle, find that double touch, find that aerial pass with the free jump, because Parity was trying a lot of those in the last game. Eventually, something's going to break.
Well, they almost had one there, too. Antics not quite able to get to that ball correctly, but at least gets to 50-50 and starts up the offense one more time here for Parity. At 0-0 with about 90 seconds gone, it's very clear. Parity are going to have to try and play this one a bit more seriously. They cannot focus on those aerial plays. They cannot focus on trying to get passing plays. They just need whatever shot they can find. And at this point, they haven't really been able to find a good one. The first real shot we see all game comes from Seaside there as they almost get one in. Defense going to stand tall, though, and will not allow that. But, uh-oh, they've got to test themselves one more time. Xeria, the only player back, but gets a little bit of help out of Finesse. That one goes cross, and I got to be honest, Seaside playing this one a little bit panicked right now. They have a lot more time on offense than they think, and you can tell based on these booming clears that they are just rushing a bit too quickly.
Yeah, and just waiting to see what they can do to kind of calm down, slow down, and put something together. This is what we talked about when, yes, you want to have the pacing and maintain control of the game, but you also don't want it to be at a point where it's just a little bit out of reach, where you're trying to play a little too fast. You start to just hit the ball because you can. You start to just send it just because, and you find yourself out of control. You find yourself in these positions that are very precarious. Finally, after a few bounces on the line, it's going to cross. Ski Boy's going to get the first strike out of this one. All three players got a touch on. He's the final one to put him up 1-0.
I didn't even know how Ski Boy touched that. I saw the goal got accredited to him, and I was rather confused to start off. But now that we see the play back, it definitely was a precarious position. I think that's by far the best word you could use there. But it's a precarious position that works out in favor of Parity. They are up 1-0 with about half this game remaining. And now that they've got some momentum in their favor, can they start to run with this? Seaside have been playing from their back heel pretty much this whole series, so I really do fear that Seaside might have just letting this series get away from them. They have not been able to play from behind before, and now that it's backs against the wall, it's the end of the series. If they lose this one, they've got to be a little bit careful. Speaking of being careful, you got to make sure you get someone in the way of this. Antics off the ceiling, and it's a banger into the bottom left.
A beautiful control of yourself, just to be able to find the position, find the angle off the ceiling, off the wall, especially just to be able to have the control, knowing where that ball is going, and a beautiful pass to let Antics get that shot on and sneak it inside the upright. What a setup, what a finish for Parody to put him up 2-0, and that is a huge confidence booster from that side and potentially detrimental to Seaside, who at this point, as you said, they've been a little panicked, almost looking as if they're kind of scrambling, trying to find anything. And as that clock ticks down further and further, it is just getting that much more difficult, especially when you are on the wrong side of the field to score points.
Yeah, this is becoming a very, very difficult place to try and come back from here. Seaside are pressed into their half once again. Xeria and Antics both there trying to stunt. I guess I was a little bit wrong. Apparently they are still going to go for some of these flashier plays in air. The difference is, though, that they're not as behind as I might have expected with this flashy plays. They're still in this one very clearly, up 2-0 with a definitive lead right now. It's whether or not Seaside can find themselves a late goal here. If they can cut this lead in half, get themselves their first goal on the board, I think this is still a viable game for them to win. However, I was going to say on the other end of this one, if Parody score another one, this one might be out of hand with a minute left. There comes a third, and Parody might just move on in a 2-0 sweep.
Certainly was not expecting that sort of performance here, especially after what we saw in Game 1 and virtually for most of this game, because we know Seaside could almost just go blow for blow with them and keep up. But unfortunately, there's just a few times where they have fallen half a step behind, and that's where Parody stepped up to get themselves each of these goals and put themselves at this advantageous position right now. 50 seconds to go, 3-goal lead, looking to be the first team to move on into the semifinals. Of course, we already have the full bracket filled out for the quarters. Let's see who's going to be fighting for that. Top three move on to the grand finals in 2 weeks' time. Parody right now making a really good case that they want to be a team that joins us at the end of the month.
And I think that they just might. They're a team that we knew would do pretty well here. We have seen Ski Boy and Xeria play this tournament so many different times, even in a 2v2 scenario, and they were a threatening team back then. All of a sudden, they pick up Antics, who has hit some of the nuttiest shots we've seen in the entirety of the Atlanta Community Open. And now they might have just found that key to victory. There's a lot of other good teams here today, some of which we haven't even seen yet. Speaking of which, that Smokes team, which I'm hoping is going to be up next. But regardless, they're still a team that I think can actually give a good run for their money against that Smokes team. Last time, they looked like they lacked that firepower. This time, they go into Game 2 and take a 3-0 shutout and then a 2-0 sweep on their opponents. Perry move on here with a very, very convincing win.
All things considered, that was, statistically speaking, pretty close. I mean, the shot total was relatively the same. I mean, I think it was a 4-5 or a 5-6 between the two of them, and that's significantly closer than what the scoreboard would reflect, because after watching the performance that Parody put on, we can take a look at some of the replays of the performance they put on, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. Their offense was really working well together, and all of a sudden, looking at, what they're doing on the other side, Seaside could not quite find the same fluidity and same efficiency in attacks that Parody was putting together.
Yeah, that's the big difference. It's just the efficiency. Like you said, it's one of these things where every single time that we saw Parody get into offense, they had at least a threatening chance there. A couple of them went off the bar and out, but for the most part, Seaside just looked a little bit lackluster when they got into their opponent's half. They had the opportunities to take some shots, but just unfortunately did not. And as we can see from the replays here powered by Microsoft ATL, it was one of these things where the further the momentum went in favor of Parody, the harder it became for Seaside to try and recover. And unfortunately, they find themselves the victims of a 2-0 sweep here. Still a strong team, and we hope that they come back, because once again, this is not the last qualifier of the month here, Caribou. Even if these teams are not able to make it through on this one, they've still got another chance next week.
Yeah, and with the biggest point is 225. That's on the line, right? 150 for first place, 75 for second. But third place gets that consolation prize of congratulations. You made it to the grand finals at the end of the month, where there's significantly more to play for as far as the cash prize goes. put third place tonight, it's like, okay, yeah, well, we got it. So we got a couple of teams that have qualified for the semifinals already. Next up, we've already seen Sheesh play once before. Next up, we have Homie Check that will be facing off and trying to get themselves to the semifinals as well. But another quarterfinal matchup here between them. And we've seen what Sheesh can do offensively. Do you think the Homie Check can put up a defensive check and roll a persuasion check? Are they going to win out on this?
I don't know. This is going to be an interesting matchup just because I do have at least a little bit of a background on this Homie Check team. We've seen Jolading in this tournament before. I don't know if we've seen Ringy or Electric in this tournament before, but they're players that I'm at least a little bit familiar with. The unfortunate truth beyond everything else of this is that we still don't really know what to expect out of Sheesh. We saw them play their last matchup, and while they absolutely dominated their opponents, they played it a little bit haphazardly, a little bit silly, a little bit not to your liking because they brought out the Battle Bus, which I don't think you are as big of a fan of. But still, even in the Battle Bus, they stunted on their opponents, had a really good game. So the question now becomes is, can they actually, when time comes, when push comes to shove, can they play like a very efficient Rocket League team and stick to the traditional roles and actually still win?
I have decent faith that they can, kind of buckle down, take it a little more seriously, and put the Battle Bus back in the garage and, bust the Octanes back out. But watching to see what they're going to do in this, because as you said, this is going to be where it starts to boil down in competition. This is where you have to take it seriously. You have to be able to put something together. Yes, you can go for a cool highlight play. You can go for a nice musty flick if you want to, but if you're down 4-0, maybe don't try to go for a musty flick highlight reel. Like, maybe just try to have a passing play that opens your teammate up for a backdoor goal. Like, it doesn't have to be cool. You just got to score points to keep yourself in this. If you have the 4-0 lead, maybe then you can go for those highlight reels. But until you get to that point, we try to tone it down a little bit on that. But knowing Sheesh, maybe they're not going to. Maybe that's their personality. That's their reputation that they are here to uphold. The Battle Buses aren't going anywhere. Not only are they going to have 2, they're going to bring out 3. That's just the wild card that you don't expect, but leave it to them. They might do it.
Well, we're going to have to find out. It really is one of these things where we find out what this team is made of in this round. This is by far the time where it becomes, they have to start taking this seriously. They have to start playing this one a little bit more precise, because if they do not, they're most likely going to get knocked out. We're quarterfinals now. This is not one of these things where the teams are going to be weak. These are all going to be extremely strong teams. And, well, if you guys would like a little bit of a preview of what Sheesh can do, we do have some more replays powered by Microsoft ATL once again. And this is what they were doing last time. These type of connections, these aerial plays where they were just hitting ridiculous angles, this was the usual for Sheesh. So when we say what are they made of, we want to see what can they do when they're not taking ridiculous shots like this.
And that's exactly the biggest question and the biggest question mark, because there is that level of the unknown where I don't know if they can just basically water it down to basic fundamental Rocket League. I'm sure that they can, just because they have this level of talent that they can do all this fancy cool stuff, but we saw more than a handful of triple commits from them in that series right there. And if that's something that they are kind of getting used to, that might be a problem, because teams that are going to be able to disrupt those triple commits, find that weakness, and get a single clearance where there's already a player at midfield waiting to get a shot on open net. We saw an open net shot from the last game that ended up off the upright, off the post, and that is something that as these teams get better and better, you're not going to miss those chances, and they're not going to be able to get away with something like that. So certainly going to have to kind of take that into accord, that maybe we got to actually play,
We gotta hope so. I think you used the perfect word there, the fundamentals. The fundamentals are fundamental for a reason. You have to be able to hit those basic shots. You have to be able to hit those open nets. And if you don't, like you said, teams are going to just start punishing you more and more and more. The further you get into this tournament, the rougher it's going to be for you to make mistakes without having a team capitalize. And, well, game number 1, let's see what type of team we do see out of Sheesh. Like we said, a very strong opponent they've got coming up. So if they start to mess around a bit too much, they might just find themselves the unfortunate losers here in this bracket.
Homie Check in blue, try to find something with the flip reset off the start. Watch the follow is not going to be able to go through. They're going to be able to push this back. They have taken it back to their legitimate vehicular choices, understandably so, because for at least the first game, you don't want to go in with the battle buses. You want to actually try to build up some momentum, as you say, the imperative that you have to have the momentum. It's a absolute must-have in a series, especially against a team as good as Homie Check are. And already putting this much pressure on Sheesh might be a little bit more than Sheesh is ready for, and expecting this early in the game. Electric is going to be shocking them with the first goal. 4:13 to go. Homie Check get the first goal and 1-0 lead.
You can definitely tell by the way that Sheesh is playing right now. They were not expecting this type of power out of Homie Check here. They came into this one hoping that they'd be able to play at least a little bit reserved, but all of a sudden, Homie Check get the offense. They don't leave that offense, and they score the first goal. We're within the first minute, and Sheesh very clearly are going to have to take this one extremely seriously, and well, for Vigil, that is not a problem whatsoever.
Just able to capitalize off of that midfield 50 and put the nose on, send it right over the top, the defense stepping up. That's exactly the strike back that you want. 6 seconds later, after that, nobody really in position. They don't have all the boosts that they're looking for, and that's a great opportunity of weakness that you're able to step up, take advantage of. See if Vigil's going to follow another one. Jellything's going to challenge, but will be left up in the air. Another clearance back that Tone will send back into play. But this is going to be, I think, exactly kind of what we expected out of the last series. A great matchup between two really solid teams here. This is the last position available in the semifinals. One of these two teams is moving on, and the other one is probably going to be registering for next week's qualifier, because after what they've done so far, they got to do a little bit more. Tone is doing enough here to give them the 2-1 lead.
And Tone stepping up on offense is something I like to see. He's been a little bit more of a defensive player. Meanwhile, Nate and Vigil have been doing whatever they really want on offense for the most part here. Now that Tone's getting involved, we're starting to see that real three-man rotation out of Sheesh. Something that, like we said, we had some question marks about. We didn't really know what this team was going to be able to do once they started facing higher competition. And, well, the time has come, and they have proven so far that they are a very capable team, whether that be offense or defense. A couple of saves for everybody on Sheesh and a couple of shots as well. An all-around team that's really doing the most right now. They're even taking shots from the sidewall there, not quite able to slot it in, but it's very clear Sheesh are no longer going to be taking those aerial shots. They're no longer going to be trying for anything fancy. If it can make it into the back of the net, they're going to take a shot with it.
Yeah, they've got themselves into a kind of a rhythm that they're really looking for in this. As you see, drop down right there, Homie Check placed third place in the first qualifier. So technically, they have already qualified for the grand finals at the end, but they're just trying to play spoiler here for Sheesh right now. As Tone is going to find another one to carry it in and be able to bounce it off a couple defenders to go across the line. Give them an insurance goal lead now, 2:46 to play. And Sheesh, after looking a little overwhelmed in the opening 30 seconds, have found their answer and have the lead.
My oh my, do they have the lead ever. That was a brilliant shot out of Tone. Great power, great placement all around. Tone seems like he kind of just took the shackles off after game number 1. No longer weighed down. He is just playing however he wants, and he might even pick himself up a save. Yes, he will. On the line, keeps the ball out for now, and then makes another one. The defense of Sheesh is stepping up beyond anything I could have imagined. We knew this team to be very offensive. I did not expect them to be just a brick wall on the back line.
They did such a good job at just being able to deal with that opening attack in that first 30 seconds, where all of a sudden they seemed like they were caught off guard with the offensive power from Homie Check. And again, Homie Check now finding their ways to put an offense together, put an attack together. Sheesh really found their answer to get the rotations in on defense, to stop everything from going across that line and try to find a counterattack here. With 2 goals up still, they don't even have to really go for any offensive play. They can just burn the clock and find a way to take this into game 2 with this 1-0 lead right now. But they are still trying to put some pressure on. That shot from midfield is going to get deflected aside by Vigil. Good heads-up awareness to rotate back in time there. 90 seconds to go here on this one. And Sheesh are looking very poised in this matchup.
Doing a lot better, just keeping themselves aware of every single place on the pitch right now. Before, we saw them keep a couple of open nets available for their opponents, and while their opponents didn't necessarily capitalize on every single opportunity, they were still there. Those gaps were still there. Those holes in the defense were around. This time, it just seems like they've got everybody in the right place at the right time. Sheesh have just kind of flipped that switch to where they go from a fun-loving team who's just kind of hitting some intricate shots to a team who's taking this very seriously. And this is what I had seen in previous tournaments out of them. The thing that that surprises me is that they're doing this against a team which we know are very, very good. Like you said, they placed third in the first qualifier. They're already there at the end of the month. Oh my word, but they're going to also have to wait for their opponents there as well. Sheesh, up 3-1 here, and most likely if they take this, at least in my opinion, they're finding their way to the end of the month if they do.
They look so good right now in the way that they're handling this matchup right now in their first game. Of course, absolutely could swing back the other way in game number 2, but just the amount of time that they burned, they haven't really let Homie put anything together on the other side. Their defense has been fantastic to stop anything from going through for Homie. Sheesh really came in. They were able to adapt, as you said, is one of the most important things that we're going to be looking for all night long. See if they can find an answer the other way. Watch the bump is going to be enough as they plow the road. Jolading is able to clear the way, and they get one back. So only a goal down here with 13 seconds to go. Is it enough time?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's a definitive overtime here, but it's a possibility. If Homie get a perfect kickoff here, they might be able to do something. Oh, and they have gotten one. Jolading decides not to go up for that one. I understand the fake out, but that was a little bit too obvious. Jolading, you decommitted from that ball with about 5 seconds before you arrived there, and as a result, sheesh, you're going to hold on. That was a bold decision. Not exactly sure why that was the decision made, and unfortunately, it's going to cost them the game.
And a very unfortunate selection right there. I mean, I'm with you. I understand it. I know what you're trying to go for. I see it, but that is just a little too telegraphed to what you're trying to set up. We can take a look at some of the replays from a phenomenal game number 1, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. This was such a good and close series. Starting out, Electric gets the first goal just over 45 seconds in. 6 seconds later, they strike back with Vigil getting that, and then a good setup on the other side with Vigil gets the assist. Sheesh just figured out kind of what Homie was trying to do pretty early on. Adapted into this is the point I was attempting to make before we got that second goal just there. But adaptability is a huge component of these games and of these series. And for the first 30, 45 seconds, all of a sudden, Sheesh was like, oh no, this might be a problem. Never mind, we're fine. And they adapted, they played well, and they walked away with the W.
Yeah, they did a great job of really understanding how their opponents were going to play. Sometimes that's what game number 1 is as well. In a best of 3, we don't always get that feeling out period. In a best of 5, you almost always see in game number 1 as 2 teams playing a little bit reserved, trying to feel out how they're going to play, trying to figure out how they want to play the series. And in a best of 3, some teams do that, some teams don't. Some just go out the gates firing and hope that that works out for them. It's very clear. Sheesh, they went into this one with a little bit of adaptability in mind. They want to make sure that they can keep up with their opponents and figure out how they play. And, well, as we get into game number 2 here, once again, it's another offense that does not come out to anything for Homie. And as a result, they might just get scored on the other end. No such luck. And now all of a sudden, Ree might actually have their own opportunity. No, shut down by Tone. But once again, the pace of play doesn't seem to change at all here. It's going to be go, 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 no matter what instance we're in.
And I'm all for that. As you said, you play a little reserved game 1, kind of get an idea of what the other team's trying to do here, but now we're just at a point where, yeah, just send it. You know you got to send it. I mean, only one of these teams can move on anyways, and Homie right now with their backs against the wall on series point have nothing to lose other than the fact of, well, we'll just come back next week and maybe try to get some money in. They've already qualified for the grand finals in 2 weeks' time, so they don't have to really worry about that. But Sheesh really have something to play for here, because not only do they want some prize money tonight, they also want a chance to play for the prize money at the end of the month. And right now, as we see in this series, as we saw in the first series, they're doing everything right. They're checking all the boxes, and they are taking care of business.
And they would love to redeem themselves here. Like we said, it's a team that has played in the Atlanta Community Open before. They have played in this tournament, not when it was a 3v3 tournament, or at least not to my knowledge. But man, if they took a win in the 3v3 environment, it would be such a cool accomplishment. It'd be something where they get to go, hey, you know Mektos and Leaks, the RLCS players that won this this competition? Hey, we also won this competition. We get to say that we are at the same level as them. And, well, right now, oh, wait, I was going to say, I don't think they're at the same level as they haven't been able to score a goal. Matter of fact, Sheesh actually are going to get scored on instead. From one end to the other, a pinch in their own net. Homie turned this into a counter play and a goal.
And that's just one of those things we talked about. Like, all of a sudden, as quickly as your attack goes through, sometimes there's just a little bit over commitment, and it's not necessarily someone's out of rotation. The defender was back, but you just don't expect the pinch off the post to go that far, that fast, and then you just have a teammate waiting at midfield put a shot on target. The defense is a little bit caught off guard from that one, so they get the first goal up. 2 minutes have passed, and that's the only one to score so far. But Homicek that's, for what it is, an incidental goal, is going to give them a lot of confidence.
It's a lot of confidence. It's almost enough confidence that I might say they take this game, because Sheesh don't seem to have an answer here. They've been locked into their half for a little while, trying to get some sort of offense together. Maybe now they can get something here. Nate in the corner wants a solo play. 2 players attack him. Ree gets in the way, but Vigil can't get in the way of Ree. Back out to midfield. Flip reset. And Sheesh, they're starting to feel the pressure here. This is something we had not seen previously. While Homicek had been able to break into their opponent's half and get some sort of offensive pressure together, the defense was usually pretty prepared. This time, Sheesh a little bit panicked here. You can see it's starting to get to them. The fact that they're down by 1, they need some confidence, and they will not find it. 2 players getting involved in the offense, but neither one of them can find the back of the net. How about a third? Vigil comes into this one. The Sheesh RL team starting to get some offensive pressure together, but can they find a real shot? Caribou, this is huge. If they can find a goal before this 2-minute mark, they might have time, but Homicek now breaks out of their own half and might just be able to end that offense altogether.
Yeah, a good way to break the momentum, because Sheesh really had a couple of phenomenal chances. Not only to break the momentum, they are swinging it completely the other way. With that shot on dead center, the defender's going to brush that one aside, but still with the 1-0 lead here, minute 40 to go. Now, as you said, Sheesh are going to have to start finding a way to get another opportunity like the one that they just had, because at this point now, that is a huge difference maker. With time going smaller and smaller, it's going to be that much more difficult for them. The pressure is going to be just exponentially climbing, and with demolitions like that on the Vigil, just try to shut down the offensive attack. Homicek is doing phenomenal right now, not only to stop Sheesh, but to find an answer the other way, give them an insurance goal. Minute 14 to go, they get their second.
This is just unfortunate rotations out of Sheesh. I think they relied on Vigil a little bit too much there. You could see that Tone initially was heading back on defense, was trying to get into the right position, but as soon as he sees Vigil in the back half, he decides to swerve off to the left, grab some boost, and just rely on his teammate. And as much as that trust is huge, you really do want to have trust in your teammates. Sometimes it's better safe than sorry, and for Sheesh right now, that's kind of the name of the game here. They've had a couple of risky plays that haven't panned out for them, and as a result, they find themselves down 2-0 right now. Might even be 3. No such luck. Homicek looking to put the dagger in here and close out this game, but now all of a sudden they've actually left the door open. Sheesh RL back on offense here, gonna try and get themselves a goal. If they can get one, a second is possible, but with only 45 seconds left, they really have got to press the issue and hurry to find this goal.
Almost a great setup right there. Nate with a phenomenal shot. Vigil had a good read on it, but just unfortunately was half a step too soon on that commit, and unfortunately had to backflip out of that one. 30 seconds to go, almost getting another one on. Nate's going to get that save credited, but a 2-goal deficit right now. Sheesh have had the opportunities, they've had the chances, they just have not got that ball across the line, and unfortunately it looks like that is going to be the reason they take the L in game number 2. On the wrong side of the field anyways, but if they can find something now, it's a little too late. It is going to be a 1-1 series scoreline here. We're going to see our first game 3 of the night on stream after Homicek take a 2-0 victory in this game.
I take a definitive victory there, too. I really did feel at some point that shutout was going to break. I thought that, the game was going to go in favor of Homicek, but they never broke. They never faltered. They continue to stay just as strong as before, and hopefully these replays can give us a little bit of a clue in on why they did exactly that. Once again, replays powered by Microsoft ATL here, and as we can see, this initial pinch, it just gave so much momentum to this team.
Yeah. It was just something that's, as I said, incidental. It's just a small little thing, but it's also something that is a morale breaker. You're like, well, now, come on. How am I supposed to defend that? Like, I literally can't. He just pinched it off the wall. The guy was at midfield. He just happened to be there to get the shot, to get the goal. Like that, come on. And then at that point, there's just now that small grain of salt that is just starting to compound. And it's like, well, okay, I should have had the pass. I should have had the shot. And then you start to see the frustration build up. They had a couple of opportunities in the late game where you can only imagine the amount of frustration just still, like, they should have scored. We should have had a goal. We should have done this, should have done that. Like, it's just right there, but they can't quite get that finishing touch. They end up getting shut out in that one. Game 3 is going to be on the North American servers here, and very excited to see who's going to take advantage in this one because this has been such a good back and forth series, regardless of what server we're on. And Sheesh have played out of their mind. Unfortunate, they just too short on that last game. Got to find their answer back.
Just a little bit. And I think the interesting thing is sometimes we do see games where it's very clear that ping is affecting the outcome, that these teams aren't necessarily being able to get these intricate shots. They're not necessarily being able to get these 50-50s in their favor. I don't think that's what we saw in the last game. I think that just straight up Sheesh got outplayed by their opponents in homie check, and now they're going to have to try and recover here in game number 3. Like you said, it's on North American servers. Maybe mentality-wise that gives them a little bit of a boost, but hopefully they don't find too much confidence because that could be a bit too much as all of a sudden homie check are on offense here and still do seem to have the momentum from game number 2.
30 seconds passed, and watching to see if that momentum is going to continue to build and go in the favor of homie check after that game 2 victory, or is Sheesh are going to find their answer and strike back in this one. Right now, the offensive homie check trying to pin Sheesh into their own zone. Vigil's going to try to answer back on this one, but will be stolen away. Nate in the corner. Going to pick up that boost, is not going to do so. Instead, go right over the top. Here, Demo on the back side is going to take this all the way down. Gets a demo of his own. Try to find a setup, but unfortunate. Just a missed touch in front of the net is going to leave this one hanging. Over a minute's passed so far. A couple of chances, minute chances on either side, but still scoreless in this one for now until Electric gets the long ball and the bounce to go in. And once again, Electric Shock has struck, and they get the first goal.
I was wondering why Tone wasn't back there. I saw him rotating back, and I thought for sure that Tone had the rotation to the ball, but as you can see out of the corner of your eye there, he misses a wave dash in the corner and completely kills his momentum. Unfortunate for Sheesh, because that really is one of these goals where it was deserved for homie check, but it just felt like they could have done a little bit more to prevent it, and Sheesh now have to play from their back heel for the next 3.5 minutes. It's not a place that they want to be, but it's also not a place they're unfamiliar with. The first goal of game number 1 was in favor of homie check, and well, the second goal then went to Sheesh RL, and similarly here in game number 3, Sheesh and Vigil specifically has tied this up.
And just able to get up over the top of the defender, reading that one and beating the defender to it is all that it took for Vigil to get that. So not too long after, another 15-20 seconds passed, we are tied up once again in a best of 1. We're back to a 0-0 scoreline essentially. And we'll see which of these 2 teams is going to take advantage of that. Of course, the other 3 teams have already qualified into the semifinals. This game right here is going to be the deciding factor for who's the number 4 team to join them. Of course, homie check has already qualified for the grand finals in 2 weeks' time. The Sheesh still looking to punch their ticket.
One of the more interesting things is that this is actually just straight up a, oh my word, qualification game for Sheesh RL. The Smokes team has made it all the way through. Top Cougar are actually in the finals already, and they've already qualified for the end of the month. So, if Sheesh RL can win this one, they automatically take 3rd for the day because there's already a team that's qualified. So, homie, this is a huge game for you guys to just sort of stomp out the competition, but for Sheesh, this is 1,000 times bigger. You win this one, and you move on to the end of the month, and they just might. Second goal just before halftime.
And of course, there's the conversation that, yes, okay, 3rd place, you get the consolation prize for the qualification of the month. But Sheesh is a team, as we've seen them play, is not one to just settle for 3rd place. They are going to absolutely want to make it to the grand finals, play for that cash prize that is on the line here today, and getting that second goal, giving them the go-ahead past the halfway point now. This is what we'd expect out of Sheesh. They have buckled down. They found the fundamentals. They have played traditional Rocket League. They don't have to do anything flashy, but they know how to get the job done, and they are doing so now.
Yeah, so far, they are doing a great job here in game number 3 of not playing as haphazardly as game number 2. A couple of, oh no, open nets were left there. Vigil this time makes me think it's an open net, but does pop up in the end. And Sheesh really just doing a good job of controlling both halves of the pitch here. Before this, they, like we had said, been a very offensive team. In the last game we saw, they were almost all defense. This game, it's a great blend of offense and defense. They are doing a good job of just controlling the pace of pitch, or pace on the pitch. And the question is whether or not homie check can figure out a way to break them down here, because once again, another good offensive opportunity, but no real shot even rings home.
I mean, just spectating and seeing what Sheesh is doing. I mean, they're reading the ball very well out of the air. That's the reason they got that first goal, that Vigil was able to beat the defender to it. I mean, all of them are just understanding the pace of this game right now and knowing what they need to do, where they need to be, where the ball's going to be, and how to get there before the other team. And it's just something that is, over time, so hard to master, but they just look so good doing it with 60 seconds to go here. A single goal lead, but Homicek are certainly not out of this. They are absolutely going back and forth. As you said, this is a good balance on both sides of the field. Both of these teams are putting together a phenomenal effort. Homicek now just find themselves the team trailing and try to find an answer back, but they got to find an efficient clear with a good pass and a good setup, and they might try to find one here.
Oh, very close. A big thing that we do need to see out of Homicek, though, is that they were taking advantage of the mistakes that Sheesh were making in game number 2. And while Sheesh are not necessarily playing as sloppy as game number 2, they are still making a couple of mistakes. That's another one there where they should have cleared that one out a little bit better than they did. The follow-up shot, though, unfortunately, was just not aggressive enough. Speaking of which, shot from Electric is a little bit too lackluster, and Vigil picks up yet another save, and matter of fact, might even turn it into a goal. Tone puts one on target, Vigil puts one on target, and Sheesh now are just wasting valuable time. 10 seconds left here on the clock, and if Sheesh can just keep this in their opponent's half, they are straight up not going to let them get back into this game, and they will not. Nate puts in the third, and the dagger, the final goal to this game.
And just already knowing that that's going to be that. 6 seconds left, 2 goals down. That's the insurance that they needed. Sheesh going to take this game, take this series, and move on into the semifinals, joining our other 3 teams that have already qualified. As I said, Top Cougars, Pastizi, and Parody, all awaiting victor of this game, which is Sheesh RL, who have taken the 3-1 here in this. They've moved on to the semifinals, the 2-1 series score, and just looking to see what they were able to do. A great balance. Offense showed up game 1, defense showed up game 2. They got the best of both worlds in game number 3, and they're moving on.
Oh my word, that was an incredibly impressive game number 3, to put it simply at this point. I mean, it's one thing to beat an opponent that you know is pretty solid. It's another thing to have a comeback victory that is the exact same scoreline as the very first game. Kind of crazy to show that this is just a team that when they turn it on incredibly. I mean, these replays are most likely going to show us the exact same thing that we knew before, but this is a team that even in tense scenarios, they hit some banger shots.
And just watching what was almost a repeat out of all 3 games. Electric scores first, and then we see Sheesh find an answer back. Vigil is going to be able to get a couple of goals to be able to beat the defenders to it, but just watching the same opening for the first 60 to 90 seconds between this, and then after that, it's just a skill check on both sides as to who's going to find their angles, who's going to take advantage, who's going to get the answers that they need. And sometimes, maybe you're going to get a lucky pinch, a lucky bounce that just sets yourself up for an easy one. They saw that off of pinch off the goalpost, but still able to beat out your opponents, read them well enough. And I can't give enough credit to what Sheesh were doing. Just watching them play, they were able to read the ball so well and just know where the play is going 10 seconds before the play's there. And they just outright outsmarted their opponents and were able to get the victory because of that.
100%. I mean, this is that nuisance play that you and I speak upon almost every time that we have a cast for Rocket League. It's just that you need to get in the face of your opponents. You need to make them feel uncomfortable on the pitch, because once you do that, not only is the momentum drained out of the team, the confidence is drained out of the team, and they're going to start to make a bit more predictable challenges, a bit more predictable touches. And if you know Rocket League like these guys do with thousands of hours into the game, you can start to predict where these guys are going. You can start to understand how they want to play and counter that. And that's exactly what Sheesh did here today. They saw what type of players they had in their opponents. They understood what type of goals they were scoring and decided to just shut that down altogether. They realized that, hey, we play too defensive, we're just going to give them the win. We have to make sure we control both paces or both sides of the pitch, and they did exactly that. Phenomenal game out of Sheesh overall. Really well-deserved victory.
And the most important thing out of all this, as you said, there's already 1 team here in the semifinals. There's 4 teams in the semifinals. 3 teams today qualify. 1 team has already made it, so that's 4. So these 3 teams left are going to qualify for the grand finals in a month, and that's going to be able to already know which of those. Now it is up to the cash prize. But our next matchup is the team that I had mentioned I am keeping an eye on as we go through. Pastizi. Sorry, I just combined the names. That's their couple name is Parizzi between the 2 of them. Pastizi and Parody facing off here. Of course, understanding these are Again, really good players. We've got some more Europeans coming into the mix as they are just uncharacteristically good on North American servers for one reason or another. But this is going to be a phenomenal match. I mean, we've already this is now the point where every matchup is a phenomenal matchup because these teams are just so good. We know these players, we know how good they are and what they're capable of. This one, personally, probably going to be my favorite one I see today.
It just might be. Like you said, this is all teams that we are familiar with them. They have I think every single team that's in here right now has at least played in one other Atlanta Open before this. So the question now becomes is who's your favorite going into this one? Obviously, the 4 teams we've got are Top Cougars, that is Smokes teams. We've got Sheesh coming into this one. We've got Pastizi and then Parody. Of those 4 teams, who do you see taking this whole thing? Because I've got my front runners here, but this really, in my opinion, is just kind of a coin toss between everybody.
Yeah, if there's a 4-sided coin, I'd love to see it right now because that's the one I'm looking for to toss between these two. I guess. So you have the defending champions and Top Cougars. So theoretically, they should be the favorites from that fact. But the fact it's not the same roster, so I guess that maybe that's a variable that changes it. So maybe they're not actually the favorites. But either way, just watching what they've done. I do have a little problem in relying on Smokes' consistency because we've seen Smokes and Sneaks play together in the 2v2s and then bringing in other teammates. And then sometimes they do really, really good. And then sometimes they just don't. So they've made it this far. That's telling me something about this trio they've put together. So I guess they'd still be the favorites, but I still have to give an edge to Pastizi here. I still think that what we've seen them do in the 2v2s and what they're going to do, I think there's a good chance they take this series here. I think there's a fighting chance that they have it's probably going to be a 3-game on all the semifinals and the grand finals. But I think Pastizi probably has absolutely everything they need to take it.
Yeah, I definitely do think that this is one of these things where it's going to come down to the EU teams here. No offense to any of the NA guys. You know that I've got your back through and through here. But the unfortunate truth is that these guys just have seemed to have the edge every single competition. I don't know what it is, but like you said, EU players on North American servers, apparently they don't lose any edge whatsoever. They're just as strong as before, and, well, we're going to find out whether or not these 2 teams are going to be just as strong as before as well. Parody, I believe, are going to have the first server here. They are going to start off on North America, which means if they want to have a chance at winning this series, they've got to come out the gates firing.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what they're going to be doing for this series because of the sense of looking at this easy parity playing off against each other. There is a way to get in the head. And if I'm looking at where this is, and it looks like we're going to have a server reset. They picked the wrong EU server. So we're going to have a different EU server to make things better for EU, I guess. But just looking at what they do, if this is the same EU team that I'm thinking of, there was one particular EU team in the 2v2 tournament that was very, very easily agitated. And if you're able to just tilt them a little bit, then that was more than enough to be able to take the edge, take advantage of this. And I want to say it might have been the duo between Vela and Bungie. And if it is, then that's I think, your key to victory, right? Because sometimes all you have to do, you don't have to outplay your opponent. You just kind of got to piss them off. And that's enough to make them make mistakes, and then you get to outplay them.
Yeah, sometimes it's about the mental game here. Like we said, that's a lot of the reason why momentum is such a huge thing in Rocket League, because in a 5-minute game, you don't really have a lot of time to all of a sudden turn that one around. In something like League of Legends, in something like even a competitive shooter like Valorant or CSGO or Call of Duty, you've got a long game ahead of you. You've got plenty of time to try and flip that momentum. Right. In Rocket League, you got 5 minutes. And then another 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes. It's all these short segments where you really have to make sure that you keep yourselves into it mentally, because if you tilt out in game number 1, guess what? You've got 2 games that are identical, literally the exact same amount of time on the screen that you're going to have to try and recover from. So where in certain games you have a long time to try and untilt yourself, to try and get yourself back into this game, you've got about a 30-second break or so in between each match to try and untilt yourself, and that's about it. So I wish them the best of luck. Parody, if you want to try and win this one, you've got to get into your opponent, under your opponent's skin, and really use that momentum in your favor.
And then it also comes down to, okay, how are you going to be able to do that? Is it going to be the one where it's just like demo after demo after demo and like, oh, I get it. Like, stop. Just let me play the game. Like, I just want to be able to play. Or is it going to be something where you kind of flex on a little bit, you know, showcase those aerial skills? But in the same conversation we had regarding the last team and Sheesh, you know, there's a time and a place for everything. And maybe in a matchup with a team as good as this on the other side, maybe that's not the time or place that you want to go flashy and try to agitate them that way because you're styling on them. Put some extra points on the board for the nice musties or the breezies, whatever your flavor of the month is. But there's got to be a way that you're able to break down your opponents, and whether it be through that agitation, through the tilt, through the salt, or just outright breaking down their defense, breaking down their offense. I mean, we saw Sheesh do the same thing where their offense was able to work together, break down the defense, and also their defense was able to break down the offense of their opponents. They built a brick wall in front of the net and nothing went through in that second game. So there's many different angles to take here. And again, I mean, just to give all fairness to all teams aside, flip a coin, really, because yes, I'll say I favor Pastizzi in this, but this could go either way any given day. It's just a matter of who's going to show up right here and right now.
Yeah, it is really about what you do coming out the gates here. A lot of the time we have seen teams that are able to recover, but in a best of 3, it really is about what momentum you start off with. If you start off a little bit flat-footed, all of a sudden, you then have to not only try to win a game, you have to win 2 in a row. You have to make sure that after losing the first game, you can recover the whole way through and not falter at all. That is one of the most difficult things in Rocket League, is being able to, once you do take that loss, not faltering again, not making a mistake again and allowing that other team to capitalize. And that's a lot of the reason why we say things like a reverse sweep in a best of 5 are so difficult, because all it takes is one bad game and the other team finishes off the series. So for Parity right now, considering their opponents are, it turns out we are going on to EU servers. I was mistaken before. Considering Parity are on EU servers, they really have to come out the gates firing, and well, they have done so far. We're going to look at the bracket here and show you guys the route in which every single one of these teams got here. As we said, Parity, you guys saw this on stream, just took a win against Seaside. Pastizzi takes a win against Team Scuffed, and Top Cougars beat out Flying Freaks to make it through. Obviously, you guys know the result of Homie Check and Shisharel, but that Top Cougar versus Flying Freaks one, that's an interesting one. We knew Flying Freaks were a good team. To see them go out against Top Cougars, not surprising necessarily, but definitely a big loss in terms of talent.
Yeah, and just setting up an even better match out there between Sheesh and Top Cougars, because we know what Sheesh is capable of on both sides of the ball, but are they going to be able to handle what Top Cougars can do? Because technically speaking, with Smokes being the captain of this, defending champion, is Sheesh going to be able to take down the big dog of this bracket of the 4 teams remaining? On the other side, Pastizzi and Parity fighting to get into that grand finals and try to get that prize money that is on the line here. Of course, those 3 teams that's not Top Cougars has qualified for the grand finals in 2 weeks' time as the top 8 teams. But we can go into our game here and now. We're finally on the right EU servers as we get into the first kickoff of our first semifinals match. And this is going to be very interesting. Vela and Bungie both are 2v2 team that played so well so many times. Definitely going to be watching what they can do together with the addition of Jake.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one. We already know what the addition to Parity has done. Ziria and Skiboy, a very strong team, but Antics has been their lights-out shooter all day. And as we mentioned him, he will show up one more time. Passing play from Skiboy to Antics, and this is a boomer of a final shot.
And just able to get that 22 seconds in, as you said, it's all about how you come out of the gates. And already getting that first one out of the way, 22 ticks after, just a little bit of a boost to try to get that morale. And again, another best of 3 before we get to the finals where the best of 5 comes in. That shot coming in from just past midfield's going to get a tying goal now. 1-1, 32 seconds have passed, and it seems like either side is going to give an inch. They're going to have to fight for every goal and going to force the other team to earn this W. It's going to be a great game already.
Oh my word, yeah, this is going to be a phenomenal one. I would like to point out, I don't know if, I don't think I'm using this right, I don't think it's cosmic irony or what the correct word would be here, but the 2 subs, or the 2 new players, the first 2 to score here in this game between Pastizzi and Parity, so we were having questions about what these new players would be able to do, and they have proven themselves, but now the veterans get to prove themselves as well. Ziria here puts in a goal from a great drift out in the corner and a phenomenal follow-up touch.
Just a real quick 180 and picking up that back boost after the demo just to kind of clear the defense out, and then taking advantage of something that you created. Xeria getting start to finish, able to take that one. Get a demo off the kickoff, see if Jake's going to find something off the bounce, but they can't get enough together. So we've got a minute past now. 3 goals have been scored total, and this is going to be a shootout, so it seems. No reservations, no feeling each other out to kind of get an idea. We are just going full throttle back and forth between these two teams, and I wouldn't expect anything less because, as I said, with the best of 3 series, and as you alluded to earlier on, you kind of get that little more back and forth in a best of 5 where you can play reserve. But here with the best of 3, you want to come out swinging, you want to come out fast, and Bungie's making sure they're staying in this game and tying it back up at 2 apiece.
This is a phenomenal touch out of Bungie off the ceiling. These follow-up to go off, get the reset on the flip, and smack that one in. It may seem pretty simple, but I can guarantee you it is not. A very nice solo play will get Pastizi back into this game. And we're 90 seconds into it. It's pretty clear. This is going to be an offensive showing for both teams. I don't think the defense is necessarily going to get thrown to the wayside, but the shots we're going to see here in this game might just be beyond spectacular.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what the offenses can put together. There's such good gameplay out of 6 incredibly talented players out of this, and I don't expect anything else other than efficiency and really just showcasing what they can do on the Rocket League field. And just watching what we've seen so far in that first 90 seconds with 4 goals to score, Bungie trying to make sure Antics does not put another one up. All going to be fought around midfield. Bungie does catch, puts it on target, but Ski will push it aside. Ella to catch in the corner center, but there's no follow there. Credit with a shot on target, but not going to be anything too difficult to push aside. Another shot on from Bungie, another follow from Vela, and that is the 1+1 duo between those two. I'm very excited to see they are still working together oh so efficiently, and they get the go-ahead goal now, 3-2.
Unfortunately for Antics, it's apparent that his offense a little bit stronger than his defense. That was not the touch he was looking for. Passes it straight out to the other team. With just over half the game remaining, we're starting to see a little bit of a breakdown in pace of play. Initially in this game, it was rather chaotic, just going back and forth, but now we're starting to see some better developed plays, some more intricate plays, and some better midfield presence too. The question is whether or not one of these two teams starts to take full advantage of that, and it seems like it might be Pastizi. Once again, first save will be great, but no follow-up touch, and it's an easy shot for the second player.
Xeri just out of the play, and you already see the defender on the right post. Antics is in the air and just can't even readjust to accommodate for the shot going left post where the other defender has gone outside of that box. So just not a lot of counterplay to that. Take advantage of the defense's mispositioning and put themselves up with an insurance goal past the halfway point here. Pastizi trying to get that emphasis of the game one. The shot on from Ski, look for the rebound and get another one, but not able to get anything more than that at this. And the midfield play, as you said, watching a little bit cleaner, getting a little bit better, is going to be what I think the difference maker in this series as to who's going to have the better midfield play to win those possessions, win those 50s, and maintain the course of this game, because it is a direct relation to who controls tempo and pacing. You win your midfield fights, then you're going to be able to control possession, control the ball, and set the tempo.
And I do think that might have a little bit to do with ping here. I do think that every once in a while, those midfield challenges become kind of scary when you don't exactly know how the ball is going to move. So the midfield presence being shown here by Pastizi is definitely what you would expect them to do on their home servers. The thing that they are doing that I don't think is just due to ping is the shot selection they are taking. They're getting these 50-50s, and they are immediately ripping them on target as soon as there's any sort of vulnerability. And, well, Parody, they've kept themselves in this one pretty well, but they have got to start trying to slow down this offense here. They're just giving too many shots as their opponents, and to a certain degree, you can't just play defense to win a game. People love to mention, defense wins championships. Well, that's great, but it's also only one half of the equation here. You need to get some sort of offense together. You need to make sure that you are playing with an all-around mindset, because that was what we were so complimentary of in Sheesh in the last matchup, was that they did a good job of focusing on defense, of focusing on offense, and making sure to balance it all out correctly. Parody right now don't seem to have that balance. They're trying to tread that line, but it's not working out, and as a result, I think they're going to lose game number 1.
And again, that's just kind of a thing you can chalk to, where's the ping difference and how much does it is, but you still have a lot of credit to Pastizi in what they're doing when they do get down to that side of the field. And this is exactly what you should do when you have that home field advantage. Try to get that first game, try to get the lead into this one, to have that little bit of confidence. You get that little extra leeway going into game number 2. And we know players like Vela and Bungie are so good playing in a ping that when you do get the game 2, with a 1-0 lead that they'll be walking out of this game with, They are absolutely capable, and it's very plausible that they take game 2 as well, even though they're not on their home server. So this is exactly what Pastizi was hoping to do, what they should have done, and what they have accomplished here in this one. And Vela with another save there just to make sure that 5-2 is about to be the end scoreline here for this one, as Pastizi will take game 1 and will take the initial lead.
I think a definitive lead here as well. Parity definitely started to get back into that game towards the back half of it, but the unfortunate truth was that as much as they were getting back into it, they never really looked like they were the favorites in that matchup. They definitely looked strong, but as we'll see from the replays here for powered by Microsoft ATL once again, it's one of these things where as close as we started to see them get into this one, Parity never really had momentum in their favor.
Yeah, and just watching what they could do from, building up what they found. It was very fast, 90 seconds, where you got 4 goals scored, a tie game back and forth, and it just could go either way. But then once you hit that breaking point, which was that goal right there, the 2:45 mark, that's when Vela and Bungie and Jake really started to step up, really started to be very smart with the shot selection they took, with the plays that they set up for each other, and they just really earned that victory. They were able to play it exactly as they wanted to, exactly as they needed to. And with the 1-0 series lead here going into game number 2, which will flip to the other side of servers for North America, the Steezy's got them right where they want them, theoretically speaking.
Yeah, 100%. It really does seem like Pastizi did the most to keep the momentum in their favor there. And while they are no longer going to be on home servers, they've done a good enough job that they can kind of just move into North America and not really care what happens. They can make sure that they keep this one pretty solid. They can keep this one close. But once we get to game number 3, even if it isn't on home servers, they're going to be a lot more adjusted to North America. They're going to be a lot more prepared for what we're going to see out of Parity. And, well, it's apparently Parity are not prepared for them. That's too many P's in one sentence. And just now, I don't know how it took me this long, Caribou, but 2 P teams in a row. This really is a tongue twister of a cast.
Yeah, that's why we could just go with Parisi and just call them by their couple name and pair them together, and then that's it. Just refer to them all at once, and you can't possibly lose like that. But 30 seconds in, we already seen a goal at this point in the last game, but right now, Pastizi with enough pressure on the offensive side. I'm starting to understand the difficulty of this, because it's all hitting me now. I'm realizing the alliteration coming out of all this. It's just not simple, but the amount of pressure that they're applying right now, this is not surprising, because we knew what Bella and Bungie, I'm at a loss now. It's falling apart so fast. Bella and Bungie were so good in the 2v2s on North American servers. This is not surprising to see them do this well. It's just a matter of what can their third do? Can their third still cover in the time they needed, where Jake is going to be able to get themselves into the position that they can qualify for the grand finals.
Yeah, and this is, like we said, a different team, but a familiar team. As you guys can see in the top left here, this is Galetti, which has now turned into Pastizi. The initial 2 players were Bungie and Vela, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe they actually won one of the Atlanta Community Opens, like overall won it as a 2v2 squad. So for them to come back and find a capable player in Jake as a third, very impressive to see, because I definitely think that Jake, oh my word, has mixed into this duo very, very well. And while there is some lingering chemistry from that Vela and Bungie duo, to have a third you can rely on, to have a third that plays very well at almost any instance, a huge boost of confidence for this team.
Opportunity the other way. Xeria shot just a little bit high, but to give credit again to Galetti. I mean, if they didn't win one of them, I think they were at least in grand finals of the grand finals twice. And now Vela here showcasing exactly why they are a team that is experienced in making it to the last possible series of the day. They've taken the 1-0 lead here after a 1-0 series lead already. It took them a couple minutes to finally get that goal, but Vela punched it in, and they have something that they can work with now.
Indeed they can. I'm a little bit confused on that one, though. Caribou, listen, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that was an open net that really just didn't even have a defender in sight. Parity let go for just a second, and unfortunately it might cost them the game, because with how far and few the goals have been, it's going to be a thing where Parity are going to have to play from behind this entire game, and they're not a team that has done well in doing that before. So halfway through this game, Pastizi are starting to find the holes in that defense from Parity, and if Parity keep throwing up those holes, eventually they're going to get plugged. They're going to get plugged with goals from the other end.
They'll try to find what their answer is going to be on the parity side. They can't find something, anything, to get a goal back at this point, but Pastizi's done a very good job of applying pressure. Vella's going to get the second one assisted from Bungie, and they're going to get the insurance 2-0 lead now, about 60 seconds after their first goal. Vella finds the second.
Once again, another hole in the defense there. They just noticed that, hey, one defender back. We've got a 2v1. We've straight up got the numbers, so let's put it high. Let's put it in an awkward position and then get the follow-up. Unfortunately, Pastizi are starting to read their opponents really well. This is why we were very complimentary of Sheesh before, is because of the fact that they made adaptations. They started to understand the way that their opponents were playing, and as time went on, they got better and better. And, well, Pastizi are doing exactly that against Parity. They're noticing the tendencies from Parity to rush some balls that they shouldn't. They're noticing the tendencies from Parity where they pull out of defense and leave themselves vulnerable, and they are taking full advantage of that. With about 90 seconds remaining, that could be the downfall for Parity here. They are down by 2, and unless they get themselves a goal very quickly, this is going to be a very long road for a comeback.
And it's certainly not going to get any easier for them, because just the fact Pastizi know what they got to do. They don't even have to score anymore. They've got the insurance now. They can't just burn the clock, but that clearance is going to be enough for Ski to get, at least there is going to be credited with it. So Antics with the assist, that ball's going in either way. But a little bit too much of a commitment on the front side, and they get one back. Minute 14 to play, and Parity are still within striking distance.
Remember how at the beginning of the day you and I were saying, I don't think we're going to see as many counterattack goals? Well, we haven't seen necessarily as many, but my oh my, have they been influential here today. A couple of them have straight up won series for different teams, and, well, it might just give Parity the chance to stay in this series, but they've got to hold off on another goal. Bungie gets beat out, and no such shot will arrive, but Pastizi still pressing the issue here. Or at least they were. They were in their opponent's half for quite some time, but a breakaway touch might just give Parity the opportunity now. Ski Boy keeps this one out at midfield. Gonna try and run with this. Instead, it's Xeria who will take their shot. But all of a sudden, Antics and the rest of Parity are starting to press the issue, or at least I thought Bungie somehow actually gets this one to go the other way, and Villa will have a touch off the backboard from what was overwhelming offensive pressure on Parity to all of a sudden, now they've got to stand tall on defense.
Great setup right there. They got the demo on the keeper. They just couldn't get the follow, and then a good putback on the center. Just waiting for the follow. You got to double commit into the left corner before you don't have anything more to follow up. But just watching Jake, Vella, and Bungie all rotating around. 15 seconds to go. Again, they don't have to score. They had the insurance goal. They gave one up, and that's why it's okay to do something to that effect. But now they just got to make sure to burn this clock. Don't give up another one. Ski's going to try to put the tiebreaker on, but it will get cleared out by Vella. All the way down the other side. Ball's on the ground, and that is going to be Pastizi to take the 2-1 game victory and the 2-0 series victory. Expected game 3s for both of these semifinals matchups. Won't get a game 3 here, but Pastizi will get a ticket to the grand finals in our second qualifier.
Yeah, indeed they do. And while it might not have been the greatest fashion as we look back at these replays powered by Microsoft ATL, they still make it through nonetheless. And the big thing here today is to note that this is a team, every time they get back on stream, every time we see them in the Atlanta Open, they are somehow stronger every single time.
And give credit where it's due, because they're not the only team that does that, and I think that is something that's incredibly reflective of the Rocket League scene in general, and that you always have to be constantly improving because the competition's getting that much better. You look at Smokes and what he's done, and the team put together significantly, well, I wouldn't say significantly, but you could say better than the last roster from where they won the opening qualifier last week, and now here they are again fighting to get back to the grand finals. That competition's getting better, so you have to do the exact same, and we've seen Pastizi doing just that. They're getting that much better. They've got themselves where they want to be. They got a third in Jake, and to give the credit where we keep talking about how impressive it is to see them reading their opponents, reading the ball, knowing where they want to be, where they want to go, and we give credit to Sheesh doing the exact same thing. If Sheesh are able to beat the defending champions, if we're going to call Smokes and company that, if Sheesh can do that, then that grand finals is virtually a mirror matchup that I'm very excited to see. But either way, regardless of who comes out of this next semifinals match, it's going to be a spectacular shootout of all three teams that are left.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of these things where we've been talking about Top Cougars and what they are capable of the entire day. I think they were the first team we mentioned here on stream. But now we get to see them on stream. Now we get to see them play, and we get to see what this new roster is like. Obviously, they won last week, so they're a very capable team, and we know that. But we haven't seen Sheesh in this form yet. Sheesh are a team that we knew were good, we knew were strong, but they are getting better every single matchup. So at this point, this is the toughest opponent they will face all day, at least in my opinion. As good as Pastizi are, I still do think that Top Cougars are just a little bit stronger. So if they can beat Top Cougars, I actually do have faith that Sheesh might just take this whole bracket.
And I can absolutely see the logic there. And I think that there is, I would agree with your sentiment that this is probably the best opponent they will face all day. If Sheesh do end up winning this, I think that there is a challenge in the sense of looking at it as a mirror matchup, because you kind of know that you're just going to be butting heads with your next opponent in Pastizi because you're trying to do the exact same thing. So it just comes to a stalemate. So it's not like the game's that much more difficult, but it's just a sense of neither one of you find a way to break down the other opponent. So that might be more difficulty in that side. But you can't even focus on the hypotheticals about what's going to go to this, because you have to focus on what is a damn good team right in front of you in the Top Cougars, because they are the team that won the last qualifier. They are a team that is consistently making it to the late stages of all of these qualifiers and making it to top 8 and getting to the grand finals and top 8s as well. Like, this is a team that you have to absolutely check your T's, dot your I's, and cross your X's, because this is going to be everything that you would want in a matchup. Because if you win, think of the clout, think of the bragging rights, think of everything you're going to get from that. On the other side, if you lose, what a great learning opportunity, because you just lost to probably the best team today. Now you just bounce back, do it again next week, and you've already qualified for the end of the month. So what's there to lose besides a little pocket change?
Exactly. I mean, the truth of the matter is that all these teams here at this point are just going to be scouting each other. They know every single team remaining is going to make it into the end of the month. So if they lose here today, oh no, we lost. Well, guess what? You've got a chance at a rematch. You've got a chance to try and prove yourselves later here in the month. And for every single team that we've got at this point, even if they do lose, even if, like we just saw, out of parity in losing, I still think that parity could come back at the end of the month and dazzle everybody and win it all. That's the crazy part, is like we said, there are no four-sided coins. We can't flip it and just all of a sudden pick a winner out of these four. But if we did, it'd probably be basically the exact same odds of us picking it normally, because it's just such a close competition. And this following matchup is going to show that, I think, better than pretty much anybody else. Sheesh is a very good team that has seemingly gotten better every single time. And Top Cougars, well, they don't seem to falter ever. And when Smokes can come back and take two top 100 1v1 players and put them into a 3v3 environment and already won, I've got high expectations for this team. Let's see what they're made of as we get into game number 1. Once again, best of 3. This first matchup is going to be incredibly important for the outcome of the series.
Yeah, and see if the Top Cougars are going to be the top dog. A real testament that Sheesh are going to be up against here if they can find something in this series. And again, to give credit, it's how do you come out in the opening game? How do you come out in the opening 60 seconds? And how are you going to be able to shut down your opponents? And it is not going to be easy. There's going to be so many boxes that Sheesh have to check in order to try to come away with this win. Nate already trying to put some pressure on, but little commit on the other side. See if they can leave an opening on the back, and that's going to be enough. Kieran's going to get the goal on. The defense can't rotate fast enough, and they are going to get the first goal and the lead 40 seconds into this game. Top Cougars take 1-0.
What an interesting touch out of Kieran there, too. Just pops it using the back of his car and somehow finds the perfect angle. Difficult save, and, well, lack thereof one. Sheesh going to find themselves down by 1 within the first minute, and, well, Top Cougars, if you can hit shots like that from anywhere, I got to be a little bit concerned for Sheesh, because Sheesh were the team we were knowing to stunt earlier. Now, all of a sudden, the other team is stunting on them, and, oh boy, that does not bode well for their confidence.
It certainly does not, and it's going to be that much more challenging. It's just a matter of, can you keep the tilt level? You can't really give in to anything on the other side. Just make sure you play your game to the best of your ability. Even if the opponents are setting the pace and just controlling the game, you got to find a way to at least damage control well enough that you keep this thing close. And only giving up a single goal here, coming up on 90 seconds half fast, it's not a lot of time. There's still plenty of time left here, and what Top Cougars are doing is mildly concerning. But if your defense is going to stand up like we've seen Sheesh completely capable of doing, built a brick wall in front of that net before, if they're able to do so and minimize the shots on and goals scored by Top Cougars, they have a fighting chance in this.
Yeah, they definitely still do. Sheesh are a very capable team, and like we said multiple times, they're really good at adapting. They just take their time and wait until a good opportunity, and while they haven't necessarily found an opportunity yet, oh boy, a little bit of confusion there. I was going to say, although they are not necessarily finding that flow yet and finding those adaptations, they're still in this one by far. But like we said, Top Cougars are a team that it makes it very difficult to try and best them. As you guys can see in the top left once again, Top Cougars won the first qualifier here. This is why we said every team that made it into the into the semifinals make an appearance in the grand finals, because Top Cougars already secured themselves a spot there by winning the first one. Now they're here again. They win 2 in a row. Not only did they become top dogs, but they put a huge target on their backs if they do so.
And obviously, at that point, would then become the favorites to potentially win the grand finals in 2 weeks' time. But here in position to try to take home a little more pocket change, you know, the $225 prize pool in today's event, and they're just trying to get a little bit more. Smokes the shot on. Nate's credit with the save. And Vigil will get a little bit of a clearance, but very quickly caught and kept. And this ball really having a difficult time clearing out of the blue side of the field. Sheesh just have not found their answer, found their clearance. That shot is going to be off the crossbar, sneaking on the line, does not go across. Look at it, saved and cleared, going the other way. Nate's going to take this, and that's going to be very interesting and very curious as to the sense of if it comes down where they do get that goal back, if Sheesh tie this one up, you're going to look at that spot and think they were 6 pixels away from taking a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, very close this first game here. Top Cougars just barely holding on with about 90 seconds remaining. She's trying to get themselves some sort of momentum here. They are trying their best to just get a goal in their favor, and oh my word, keep this one a little bit closer, because all of a sudden Top Cougars now send this one the other way and might just be able to slot in another goal here. 70 seconds remaining. If Sheesh can't break out of their half and give themselves a good shot on target, this game is going to go by the wayside with, I'm not going to say minimal effort, but Top Cougars looked incredibly confident here. It didn't really ever seem like they were too pressed on defense and really controlled the pace of play overall.
Yeah, and the lone goal they scored, you know, it was an impressive shot that Kieran was just able to redirect off the angle, and then they had a couple of other chances where they really could have put a second one up, get some insurance here, but the amount of possession that they've had and the amount of control that they've had has really made a statement in this, regardless of the fact that it's only a 1-0 for the time being. You know, maybe we get a tying goal, maybe we see another one from the Top Cougars side. Regardless of what the scoreline says, Top Cougars really had a lot of control in this game and just feel like they're playing their style. They play the way they want to. With 20 seconds to go, Sheesh has to put something together in this possession now, because this is one of the very few times the ball's come across that midfield line.
They've got to get something together here. Here's a shot. Oh, my word. That could have just been the dagger. Top Cougars with a chance to put in a second and just completely take this game away from Sheesh. But now all of a sudden, the door has been left open. Touch off the backboard. Vigil can't quite get there, and no one will get there for the follow-up. Top Cougars going to find themselves an easy end to the game there. What could have been a ball that stayed up for a while does not get followed up, and I mean, listen, this was going to be a win, at least in my opinion. I think this was going out in favor of Top Cougars nonetheless, but there was a chance there. There was absolutely a chance for Sheesh to try and tie that one up.
Yeah, in such a close game, and regardless, just as I said, the scoreline, a single 1-0. We can take a look at the replays from this game, which, frankly, a lot of back and forth, not a lot to show. Of course, Microsoft ATL powering all of our highlights and replays for today's event. That lone goal out the redirect from Kieran, the bounce on the goal line, there's enough spin to keep it out of the back of the net, so it maintains the 1-0 for the entire game. Cougars just in control, and Sheesh could not find a way to break out of their defensive zone, could not find a way to put together an offensive attack. We saw them so efficiently doing on passing plays, on the aerials, on the pre-jumps, and just reading the plays, reading the ball very well in games. This time around, they are the team playing from behind, both in timing and on the scoreboard, and it showed that she's just not quite in their comfort zone here.
Yeah, not nearly the same sort of comfort that they saw in the last series, and a lot of that is the fact that they did try to make some adaptations, but their opponents just didn't seem to care. Top Cougars just kind of brushed off every single one of them, flicked them off like a flea, and just kind of said, okay, cool, we'll keep playing our game no matter what. And that's what's made this so difficult right now, is that Sheesh, while they are a very, very solid team, they're kind of just being outclassed in every single way, shape, and form. Whether it be their offense or defense, it just seems like Top Cougars have that little bit of an edge to them. And considering the lineup, I'm not really surprised. Like I said, Toxic, Kiernan, and also as well as Smokes, as we already know, are three very capable players who have done a lot of really good things in the past in many different tournaments. So for Top Cougars right now, it's about holding on and maintaining the same sort of pace they had from game number 1. For Sheesh, it's about going back to the drawing board and finding some sort of success because so far, not so good. Down 1-0 within about 30 seconds.
Yeah, not too long before they finally get the goal in. They had a lot of pressure on Vigil, just can't quite keep up with the pass across the middle. It's just going a little bit too fast, too furious, and with that 1-0, we've seen a single goal is really all it takes. That's all they needed to win the first game, potentially all they might need here for game number 2. Vigil's trying to find a solo answer and carry this one in, gets the flip reset, and does very quickly equalizing this 1-1. 7 seconds later, phenomenal aerial dribble and reset by Vigil to make this one back up.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal play, and that's one way to get confidence for your team for sure. Vigil just looking to the rest of his teammates and going, guys, we got this. Take a deep breath, get yourself recentered, and we can do this. With over 4 minutes remaining, there is plenty of time for Sheesh to get themselves into this game, to get a win and force a game number 3. It's not going to be easy, though. Top Cougars, like we said, have just looked so incredibly strong here. And considering this is their first appearance on stream today, the fact that I guess neither one of us are really surprised at what they're doing should go to show you what type of team that Sheesh are facing right now. They really are against the best of the best.
And giving all props to Sheesh and what they've done and how they've got here. I mean, they got here with the trio that we see with Nate, Vigil, and Tone. Tone's been subbed out for Banger, and Kiernan is going to send a Banger into the back of the net to give them the lead once again, 2-1. But watching Sheesh still maintain a decently close game on the scoreboard, even with the substitute coming in, also says a lot about that team as well, and how capable and how talented they are. Regardless of the starting 3, they're going virtually blow for blow with a team as good as Top Cougars, and you have to give a lot of credit to the competition here because, as we said, it's getting better, not only on one team, but all of these teams constantly improving, constantly getting better individually, as well as with the roster changes they're making.
Yeah, and speaking of roster changes, we do have a little bit of a substitute here in this series. Before this, she should have been playing with with Tone. Now they are playing with, well, Banger. Speaking of which, he's going to put the second goal on board. What I was going to say was how I feel like Banger hadn't been as much of an offensive presence. Now, all of a sudden, he does get involved. For the most part, we had seen Banger pretty reserved in the first game or so, not really getting involved overall. Finally gets himself a goal on the board, and maybe he can actually take the place of Tone, who, before this, in my opinion, had been leading the charge for offense once he got warm.
And just watching, the way that it's going, because exactly like you said, Banger seemed like virtually a non-factor in the first game. And that's the expectation of a series first game, but now all of a sudden with the quick 1-2-3, Nate, Banger, and Vigil all mixed into this play to give them the go-ahead. 2:55 on the clock, a 3-2 lead. Watching what Banger's done, it seems like, as we've talked about, game 1s in a best of 5 is you feel each other out. It seems like 5 players were not playing that way in game 1. That was the role that Banger took on to get a feel for how this game was going to flow, and all of a sudden game 2, Banger's got the understanding, knows what to do, knows his role, and is coming out and making a difference here.
100%. That last goal, it was a little bit subtle. It was hard to catch, but Banger actually was the reason that goal went through as well. Toxic was on the line waiting for that shot from Nate, but when Banger comes in out of nowhere and slams into him, it's no longer a viable option to make a save.
Wow.
Well, speaking of not making a save, no one made a save there, but somehow Top Cougars walk away unscathed there. I truly thought that we would see another goal, but somehow, some way, Sheesh just not going to be able to get punished there. I'm a little bit confused what we're seeing because before this, the number one reason we had been complimentary of Top Cougars was their consistency. Now to see them falter a little bit definitely has me scratching my head and wondering what the outcome of this series might now become.
And such a good game here for the rebound from Sheesh. Losing out on game 1, a single goal was all that was needed. It was a 1-0 scoreline. Now we got 3-2 here. Minute 45 to play. Opportunities have presented on both sides of the field for both teams. So right now, edge to Sheesh with that 3-2 score. But Nate, And as we said, Banger and Vigil, all three of them getting in the mix so well. And another one, Banger's going to get the chip. A little bit of backspin on the other side, plus a disruption on the defense is going to give them the insurance and a 4-2 lead.
In my opinion, that entire play was why 1v1 players are a risk and a liability when you put them in a 3v3 environment. Kieran thought he had all the time in the world there, got the initial touch, tried to get a follow-up touch, but when he can't keep it himself and just play by himself, that's where the detriment comes in. In a 3v3 scenario like that, your goal is to touch it initially, then go, guys, I've got nothing after this. Someone has to bail me out. And when you don't make that call and all of a sudden your other two players are on the line just kind of waiting to see what happens with you, you leave them vulnerable. So she's starting to look better as a 3v3 team, which is kind of what we expected here, considering the two 1v1 players on Top Cougars. But the thing, though, I am surprised is that Top Cougars did have a good flow in game number 1. Now in game number 2, they're starting to lose it a little bit, Karen.
Yeah, just a little, certainly, disruption in their play style, but Kieran is going to try to fight back on this one and get everything squared away back to normal. It's another one, so now it's just a single goal after playing off the bounce from the backboard, plus a lot of bumping, a lot of physical contact there on the defense to carry them into the net. With the initial attack, a single goal, 54 seconds, the Top Cougars are still absolutely in this game and certainly not going down without a fight.
Oh, and they might just be tied up now.
Oh.
Yes, indeed, they will. Toxic puts in the tying goal. And this is where we were concerned for Sheesh. It's their defense that's breaking down. Yeah, Banger, the last one back there, like you said, trying to play that defensive role. Meanwhile, Nate and Vigil get caught up on each other and both commit for the same ball out at midfield. And this is where the difficulty has been for Sheesh, is when they start to have those offensive pieces, but when they move two of them at once and all of a sudden it's a double commit, they leave themselves very vulnerable, and they've done this too many times for my liking.
Watching what they're going to be doing in the last 35 seconds with a tie game. Banger, of course, had the opportunity to try to get that save. Guessed high. Instead, the ball went low. This time around, Banger's going high to the upper 90. Under 30 seconds to play. Great 1-2-3. Vigil to Nate to Banger is going to be a banger. And wow, what a comeback to be able to get themselves back in the lead. But still, plenty of time here for Top Cougars to strike. It does not take them long.
Oh my word, was that a heck of a shot. It's a heck of a way to get yourself back into a series like this and get yourself back into a game, because I must remind the audience right now, Sheesh are down by a game. If they do not win this one, that's the end of their tournament run. So to keep the resiliency, to keep the goals pouring here, it's really going to do them wonders, and it might just give them a breath of life and a chance here for game 3. Oh, but they have to survive one more time. Vigil does get in the way of this one, but that's not the end here for Top Cougars, keeping this one up. Kieran gonna try and keep this one up in the corner. Toxic will instead. But they are doing a good job of just popping this one around. So far, Top Cougars are not letting this one die. They want to force this into an overtime because, once again, like we said, Sheesh now have momentum on their favor as they take the win here and force a game number 3. This is going to be interesting. I actually don't know who takes this game number 3, because before this, I thought, oh, okay, you know, it doesn't look like Sheesh are here to play, but all of a sudden, team plays start developing, and they look almost unstoppable, Caribou.
They finally got that 3 full in tandem working together. We take a look at some of these replays powered by Microsoft ATL into what we just saw. 9 goals scored between this game. We had 1 goal in game number 1, and it all started with Toxic, but after that, it was just the back and forth. A goal here, a tie there, a tie there, a goal there, a tie it again, and then finally you get that last second go ahead with 28 seconds left. But Banger, as we talked about, I think is the difference maker standalone in this game, because of the sense that non-factor game number 1 was all over the board. Assists, passing, and shots to get goals scored. Banger made a huge difference in this game. But to give all of the credit to Sheesh, it wasn't just the one person scoring. There was an initial pass to a secondary pass, to a bump on the defense, to the shot, to the goal. Just all of a sudden, this trio is looking really good going into game 3.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest thing for Banger is that game 1 was him figuring out where he fit into this 3-man rotation. Like we said, he was a substitute. He was a player who was not as comfortable playing with the other 2 players that are on the pitch. So once he does find that role, once game 2 rolls around and he's all of a sudden figured out where he needs to slot into the rotation, he's going to be a completely different player. And that's exactly what happened for Banger, is where game number 1, he tried to play a little bit more of a reserve role, let Nate and Vigil go do what they want on offense. Game 2 rolls around, and all of a sudden he goes, okay, I realized that they can't just control offense on their own. I need to get involved here. So while I'll still say the defensive player and definitely still keep the back line solid, I'm also going to focus on getting involved on offense. That rotation from Sheesh is what won them the game, in my opinion. And again, considering that Top Cougars are a team full of a couple of 1v1 players, it's not as surprising that the rotations are stronger on the side of Sheesh.
Yeah, and looking at, where we're going to break down score, I mean, it was a 1-0 game 1, 5-4 game 2. So between the two games, it's 5-5. Virtually even. We're now even in the series. So this is just a single best of 1 where the better team's going to end up winning. By tiebreak rules, the higher seed is going to get server preference, and that's going to be the EU server. So we're going to go back across the pond where we're going to try to see what Vigil and company can do with Sheesh playing not on their own home server. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But from what we saw in game 1, it was 1 goal. That's all it was. And it was still a decent game that they put up. The concerning point of that single goal was how much time, because it was about 70 to 80% of that game spent on the defensive half for Sheesh.
Yeah, they've got to make sure that they break out here. And I think a lot of that is the fact that Banger does seem a little bit more confident and comfortable on the pitch now. So I don't think he's going to relinquish himself to a fully defensive role anymore. I think when they do get those breakout chances, rather than just kind of holding back and letting Nate and Vigil just do what they want, he's going to start to try to get involved as well. He's going to call off his teammates and not just have them control all of offense. And I think that's going to be not only influential, I think that's going to be critical to this game. If Banger does not show up, if Banger does not get involved in the offense, and really all 3 players of Sheesh do a good job of playing all roles, they're going to lose this one outright. It's what we saw with Tone. When Tone was playing as a really good player and made sure to get involved in both halves of the pitch, they won. When Tone was playing reserved, they did not. So Caribou, this game number 3 is going to be very important for every single player on Sheesh.
And I think that's kind of an interesting difference maker between this series as well, as we can get into this third and final game between these two teams to decide who's going to be the last team to go to the grand finals. There's a lot of conversation that we've had about the players of Sheesh and the way that they're all working together very well. Where you look at what Top Cougars are doing, it's not really like Toxic's doing well. It's not really like Kiernan's doing well. It's like all of Top Cougars are just playing their game, and it just works because you just think of Top Cougars as that threesome where it's just, there is no divisiveness, there's no individuality. They are just a well-oiled machine that is really good at Rocket League. And that is something that a lot of teams strive for and will attempt to achieve. And the fact that Top Cougars are there, and you can't really think of, okay, there's going to be a single player that is going to be a difference maker for the Top Cougars team. Where on the other side, you have to look at where, as you point out, and I completely agree with you, there is a single player that is going to be a difference maker, and that has to be Banger. We know what Nate and Vigil are capable of. Banger now sliding into this tertiary role where it's like, okay, what can you do to fit into this where you weren't here for the earlier stages of the bracket, but now you are? Potentially game 1 was an actual warm-up game that Banger had not warmed up at all going into any of these. So game 1, the warm-up, game 2, figured it out. Does it carry into game 3 on the EU server, or was that EU server the inhibiting factor that kept Banger down? Lots of question marks, lots of I don't knows, but I think that it's just an interesting conversational topic that there is a single unit that you have to take into perspective on the Sheesh side, whereas on Top Cougars, it's like, can Top Cougars play?
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is can Top Cougars play as a unit? I mean, we know that Sheesh are great as a 3-man unit. It depends on whether or not one of their players falter, and then all of a sudden all of that falls apart. Top Cougars here, it's about making sure that they play to the best of their abilities individually. And I would also say sometimes with the team plays, but like we said, a couple of instances where players try to go for these solo plays that don't work out. I'm okay if they try some solo plays. I'm not okay if they keep trying them once they don't work out. And that's what happened last game, was that Sheesh were playing well with the team plays, and meanwhile, oh my word, Cougars were not. This time, they're going for solo plays once again as Kieran tries to go for a solo air dribble there, but I'd like to see them, succeed on a couple of these, because if they do start succeeding on the solo plays, they're going to keep doing them. If they don't and they keep doing them, that's going to be an issue. So hopefully they can find that middle ground here in game number 3, because so far it's been all offense for Top Cougars, but not a single real goal or real shot on target.
Yeah, and just opening 45 seconds reminiscent of game number 1, where there's so much time spent on that side of the field, but now a strike back. 10 seconds is all it took for them to develop a counter to go this way. The shot went up into the corner, but was saved. Now trying to find the answer to the other side. Nate's going to go all the way back and pick up that corner boost, where he'll be challenged in the corner. Mitchell credited with the save that's really just a clearance out to the end, and that's something that you hope that they can kind of get under control, where the clearances aren't just booming. Here's Nate with the save on the crossbar. And watching what Smokes, Kieran, and Toxic can do there again in offensive possession. And Kieran off the backboard is going to be able to read that. Toxic credit with the assist. Defense caught out. And that is the first goal and the lead here for Keenan and company.
And there is the team plays we had been lacking. It was clear that they were going for solo plays here in this game, but the minute that they don't work out, they go, all right, let's start sending shots off the backboard. Let's start getting this two-man rotation involved in offense, and I'm loving the change. There's no two ways about it. I really do like the change that we're seeing right now out of Smokes and company, even if it is a minor one. Oh, my word. They're definitely starting to get a lot closer here. They're starting to get a lot more contested in almost every single instance. So 3 minutes here now. We're starting to see a better flow from everybody everybody on this Toxic team. The question is can they further their lead here? 1-0 is not confident enough, oh my word, to say they'll take the game. 2-0 might be enough, though.
Yeah, that might be. That initial pinch, just try to get that off and just try to rocket that one in. That ball was moving and a great save, but then the follow-up from midfield, just trying to get themselves into the shot on and the goal. But yeah, that insurance, the 2-0, 3 minutes to play here. Kind of right where they want to be. Of course, a 1-1 series score right now in a best-of-3. Vigil, we've seen them do it before. Try to get a solo carry in to try to answer back, saying, exactly as you said, take a breath. We're still in this game. This is not anything we have to worry about. And I think that's almost kind of where they're at right now. They need something to cling on to, give them a little bit of hope, and try to find, and giving up a goal on the other side. 3-0 deficit is the opposite of what they're looking for.
Oh, I'm 100% going to blame that one on Vigil. I feel so bad for Vigil there because he pulled out just a little bit too far at midfield there, and then all of a sudden he just kept himself completely out of the game. And it's just not really something you can afford to do here. I understand that a lot of it probably has to do with ping, and you're thinking that these balls, when they bounce out of a 50-50, are going to go into a completely different direction. But the unfortunate thing is that if you know you're playing on worse ping, start playing a little bit more reserve. They're playing very aggressive here and making some risky challenges, and it's leaving them vulnerable. This is what I mean. Yep. You cannot push this far out of net if you know that counterattacks are so easy for your opponents.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that we see kind of what we do. And a little bit of a point that you look at the two-man rotations that Toxic, that Smokes, that Kieran are setting up, and try to get these team plays to go through, and watching what they're going to be doing out of this one. This is just full tilt right now. It's obviously kicking in, as you see already. The ping was just more than enough. And that's one of those things that you look at it is, can you get under your skin of your opponent? Are you going to be able to do just that? And that's exactly what happened there. They get a couple of goals. They take a 2-0, 3-0 lead. The tilt kicks in, which is the ping, and then everything, the frustration just boils up and boils over. And that will be, unfortunately, the end of that trio, you know, with Banger subbing in. A great showing from them in that second game. Just the third one, just all of a sudden, all of it falling apart because the offense from the other side was too much. And the point trying to make, a two-man rotation set up for Kieran and Toxic Smokes. It's just a two-man rotation. On the other side, you look at the three-man rotation that was the key for all of those goals they scored in game number 2, where Nate was a huge factor, and Banger a huge factor, and Vigil a huge factor. All three of them had to be included in that play to get the goal scored, hence the overcommitments in the third game, hence the goal scored. It's all a waterfall.
Yeah, unfortunately it was. And as we look back at these replays, we'll start to see stuff just kind of go from bad to worse, unfortunately. Powered by Microsoft ATL once again. You can see this first goal was definitely not huge. The second goal, though, no one home. Visual tries to get in the way, and it just kind of kept piling on top of itself. More and more as time went on, you started to see that these goals we got out of everyone off of Kieran and company just kind of made it difficult to just keep yourselves in the series. And while, as we're looking at game number 2 here, was a back and forth, this back and forth never arrived. 2 goals in a row was enough in game number 3 to just completely end this one. And I mean, listen, I would have loved to see a game number 3 that would have been a tense back and forth, but after the way that that one opened up, it didn't really seem like we would ever be able to get there.
Yeah, it just a phenomenal showcase in that game 3 performance, because now all of a sudden, and we talk about the importance of momentum and the way that it's going, there's been a break, right? A 20, 30-minute break and then some, where Pastisi has not played. And theoretically, they're playing their practice mode, they're playing ranked, competitive, whatever they're doing to stay warm and stay up in this. Whereas on the other side, we're getting fresh out of a series where in a commanding fashion, we just see Smokes and his team take a 5-0 halfway through the game victory, where they're going to be moving into the grand finals again, trying to repeat. They were qualifier number 1 champions, remember. They've already punched a ticket one time. You can't punch more than once. So everybody else in the semifinals has also gotten their ticket punched to the grand finals in 2 weeks' time. But now this is just about the prizing and the prize money. Smokes trying to get back and get that first place one more time. Top Cougars and Pastisi facing off. Do you think that Pastisi is going to be able to have enough? What kind of brief little hint, taste are we going to be able to get from you before we take our quick break?
I don't know. Listen, man, Pastisi, you're a very strong team. You guys did a great job at winning the other side of the bracket here, but I don't know, man. When Toxic and the rest of Top Cougars can all of a sudden just kind of come out the gates with a 5-0 within the first half, I'm starting to wonder if maybe momentum is a little bit too in their favor. They look very, very confident right now. They look very, very strong in the way they're playing. The question is do we get a little bit of a break, and can they keep that momentum here? We got to hope so, but we're going to have to find out. Like we said, quick little break, get everything set up for this finals, but when we return, our final matchup of the night, our first best of 5 as well between Pastisi and Top Cougars. You guys are not going to want to miss this. We'll be back in just a couple of moments.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome one, welcome all to the grand finals of qualifier number 2 for the Atlanta Community Open. My name is Caribou. Alongside me is Bass, and we are here for, of course, a North American tournament where there is no North American team in the grand finals. What else would you expect?
Nothing else. If you've seen the Atlanta Community Open before this, you might be a little bit familiar with the teams that we've got coming up here today. There are two teams which have taken wins previously here. There are two teams that have won qualifiers and I believe even won the finals here. It is Top Cougars versus Pastizi, however you want to pronounce it. But the reason we say that they're familiar faces is because we've seen them in other environments before. These are 2 to 3v3 teams which are very capable, but Caribou, we better know them as 2v2 teams.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They've been around the block a time or two. We take a look at how we got here tonight because we have seen phenomenal teams around the board. Sheesh RL, of course, the team we just most recently saw dropping out of this one and had a great showing. We saw them 2-3 times on stream tonight. A phenomenal team, even with the sub coming in. We're able to fight back, take game 2 against Top Cougars. We saw Pastizi beating Parody in their semifinals matchup. Flying Freaks, a team we started out the night with, unfortunately getting the draw to play Top Cougars in the opening round of this top 8 in tonight's qualifying event. There's so many good teams that we've seen here today that, of course, maybe they haven't got their ticket punched to the grand finals in 2 weeks' time where there's a $700+ prize pool available, but they can sign up again because there's another qualifier next week where they can try one more time. Of course, everybody in the semifinals got their ticket because Top Cougars have already made it. They won qualifier number 1. Now they're trying to repeat themselves here.
Yeah, they're trying to do so. And in my opinion, like I said, I just think that this is them doing it again. I think they're going to go back-to-back right now. It's one of these things where Pastizi did look extremely capable, and I do not want to take anything away from that team, especially Jake, who came in as that new player and has just absolutely dominated so far here. But something about the way that we saw that performance from Top Cougars in that final match, the fact that they just kind of flipped a switch and then all of a sudden they came out the gates firing just beyond all comprehension. This team looks ready to win this entire thing, Caribou. I hope that we see a really good back and forth here, but if Top Cougars also just come out the gates and just take the series by storm, I also wouldn't really be that surprised.
Yeah, it's one of those things of a point we've mentioned, how are you going to come out and come into this series? What's the first 30, 60 seconds of game 1 look like? And I think just because of the fact that Pastizi had that break in between where we were watching Top Cougars play in their semifinal match, theoretically they've stayed warm, they're up to par, they're ready for this matchup, but Top Cougars is such a good team. We are getting ready to kick off here in game number 1 of this grand finals, a best of 5 as well. I'm inclined to agree. I do believe that probably Top Cougars has favor. I am curious to see what this first, as I said, opening minute will showcase because I think that is going to really be the telling signs of how this series goes. 3-1, maybe? I'm going to call. I don't know.
All right, 3-1. I mean, listen, hey, I could definitely see it going that way. The one good thing is like we said in the best of 5, these teams are going to be able to feel each other out and figure out how they want to play a little bit more.
Yes.
Where there wasn't that time to warm up before, they're finally going to get that here and now. Apparently, Top Cougars don't need any time to warm up, though. They've come out the gate swinging. I don't know how many shots they've already ripped. None of them have been on target, but my, oh my, the overwhelming offensive pressure being shown already.
And this is exactly what we saw them do in their last series, game number 1. It doesn't matter, how much time they're really getting to go the other way. It's just the amount of shots that they're putting up. They had a single goal in game 1 of their semifinal match, and that's all that they needed. They got that game, a 1-0 victory. Top Cougars, we know that they can pull it off on both sides, and the amount of time that they're spending on this side of the field bodes very well for them. And I think is very reassuring in their chances here for this. On the other side, looking at Pastizi and what they're going to do, they got to get the duo that we've seen, as you mentioned, the duo, the Bella duo. Honestly, Bungie and Bella, they're so good together. They have to get in sync and in tandem and get going here in this game.
Yeah, they really do need to find that two-man flow that we had seen before here. That duo is so deadly when they start acting like a duo. Because like we said, Pastisi, when they were in their previous iteration and they won as Galetti, they just did such a good job of using both players. That was one of the biggest highlights, was the fact that the team did such a good job of making sure both of them were involved in plays. Both of them were playing defense. Both of them were playing offense. And now with 3 players on the team, it does still seem like they've kind of got that flow. They don't have designated roles where, oh, you're a striker, you're second man, your defense. They are making sure to give that flow to this 3v3 team, and it's doing them wonders. That being said, Top Cougars still do seem to have a little bit more lethal of a striking force considering the individual prowess, but they haven't been able to display that so far. We're halfway through this game, or just about, and neither team has gotten on the board so far.
Yeah, and they both had relatively decent chances. I mean, we saw the initial opening attack from Top Cougars where there was a lot of opportunities, a lot of shots on, whether they're on target or not. The other side, we've seen these very quick counters, and here we go. Jake finally gets one. Vela's going to get the assist on that. Just past the halfway point, Pastisi strikes first, takes the lead, and an interesting swing of events, because I think, as we talked about Banger in the last series as the difference maker, we know what Vela and Bungie can do. It is going to be the question of what can Jake do, and Jake right now can give them the lead.
Yeah, Jake is definitely one of those players where we had so many questions for what he was going to be able to do on the pitch here today, and he's answered pretty much every single one, to a point where I don't want to say that he's doing better than Bungie or Vela right now, but he really is such an influential part of this offense. Question is whether or not we can see that out of their opponents here. Top Cougars still struggling to find any good plays there. Kieran going for another solo play, and it's I'll be honest, I'm not sure if the solo players are going to be viable anymore. They might have worked in previous rounds, but now they've got to try and figure this one out. They've got to try and get some momentum in their favor, and they will do exactly that. Top Cougars put in their first, and conveniently, we get to show exactly how even these two teams are, because consistent finalist rivals, meaning they've been in the finals multiple times, so 1-1 with 2 minutes remaining. Caribou, this shouldn't really be that surprising.
Not at all. I mean, watching what they did in 2v2s, we've touched on a handful of times. Galetti were no strangers to grand finals, regardless of qualifiers or overall grand finals. And on the other side, Smokes put together 17 different rosters in 10 different events and was able to find success regardless of who's on. And now all of a sudden, they're going to get one back. Smoke's going to be the one that gives them the go-ahead. 2-1 now, minute 32 left. And I think a very interesting point of, as we talk about 2v2s and how that goes, the last goal that was the tying goal, virtually a 2v2, because there's a rule 1 on the sidewall where now all of a sudden your entire game plan kind of changes up, because I'm sorry, I just can't move. Rule 1, I'm not going to break the rules, so I commend that, but changes things up just a little bit where you're playing threes and all of a sudden now it's a 2v2 tournament once again.
Yeah, indeed. It really is a completely different ballgame once you get those Rule 1s developing, and it's also a different ballgame when you are tied. Jake can put in a second goal for his team now, and real quick before we go past the topic, I feel like I should explain for some of our audience members at home on the Xbox channel who might not have seen some of our previous stuff. A Rule 1 is when 2 players collide head-on, and the momentum of both of them driving into each other just makes them dead stop, and for Rocket League, you're supposed to abide by that. You are not supposed to break that little head-to-head clash, because that is just the ways of Rocket League. And whether or not you agree with that, it doesn't really matter here, because it has at least influenced the game so far. We are tied 2-2 here. Top Cougars found their second goal off of that, but Pastisi with a quick response here. And with a minute remaining now, Caribou, this is crunch time. The first team to take this game is going to have so much momentum going into the rest of the series.
And the biggest difference maker about all of this is we're not changing servers. These are 2 EU teams that are playing EU servers, so it's just going to be the sense of a good back and forth, and this is not only a team that's coming out swinging, but a team that gets to 1-0 all of a sudden. It's just that much easier to get through. 30 seconds to go. We're still tied here. That shot on is going to be saved by Jake, who's made a phenomenal impression in this game alone. Trying to find what they can do here in the closing seconds. Who's going to be able to step up? If not, see what we can do in extra time. Kieran tried to get the solo. Bungie pushes it aside. Watch it play off the wall. Bella's going to take possession at midfield. No boost. Pass over to Bungie, but the demo coming through. Watch it play back to the middle. Jake's going to get the credit with the save on this to put it into the corner, but the ball's still in a threatening position. Going to bounce again. Going to be sent to midfield. Kieran's going to catch, but not able to hold on to it. So we will get extra time for the first time tonight in this qualifier. And you don't expect anything else. You couldn't ask for anything else. He's going to get a quick finish. This toxic flick just a little too high. But had it been on target, it certainly would have been a flashy end to this game.
Oh my word, would have had it ever been. This is quite the back and forth here, though, and like you said, overtime here in game number 1 is only proper. We knew these two teams were going to be pretty evenly matched. The question was going to be who comes out on top at the end of this one, and right now, I mean, I hate to keep using that coin flip reference, but it really does feel like a coin flip here. It just kind of depends on who decides to show up here in overtime, and, well, both teams have decided to, oh my word, show up a little bit, but no real shots going on target here. Some pretty standard ones that have been able to either been deflected or haven't really hit the mark, and at this point, it's got to be a banger. It's one of two things, and I think we've mentioned this a couple of times, probably not here today, but in tense situations like this, there's two ways it ends. Either one team hits the nuttiest shot you've ever seen that just dazzles the defense, thought it might be that one there, or a defensive error leaves a team vulnerable. I'm going to hope it's not option number 2, because of how consistent these two teams play, if it's just one mistake that ends this whole thing, that's going to be a heartbreaker for whichever team loses.
And of course, I feel like, again, we're going to go with the coin flip. It could be either one of those scenarios. Like, it's so few and far between that you're going to see a defensive mistake that I don't expect it to happen, but you're also just watching 6 incredibly talented players that they could do something incredibly flashy and just sneak the ball in inside and upright and get the shot on to get that go-ahead and the game winner for this. The extra time has reached a minute and a half here. Now the attack is going the other way. Pastizzi trying to find something. Bella can't get up high enough to win that one. This dangerous bounce. Jake's going to be able to push this over the top. Watch for the defensive reset here, as they are going to be able to very briefly stop this challenge, stop this push. Bella's going to get quite literally carried out of the box here. Opportunity coming across again, but now just playing in the corner. And the amount of time Top Cougars has spent on this side and the amount of just dangerous bounces in the box and on this third is mildly panic-inducing for Pastizzi, but they've handled this pressure really well.
You say mildly panic-inducing, maybe for the players in the pitch, but I'm sitting here about to eat my own lip. I'm biting it so hard I can't move right now, my friend. It's just absolutely insane. Pastizzi have made so many little errors that I thought were going to get capitalized, but somehow Top Cougars have not been able to find a complete weakness in this defense. Even though there are these small errors, the recoveries we're seeing from every player on Pastizzi is absolutely A1. They are playing phenomenally right now in terms of just making sure that, hey, my co-player, my teammate may not be playing as confident as ever, but don't worry, I'll back you up. I'll make sure that even if you make a mistake, we are still going to stay strong as ever. And this team play we're seeing at Pastizzi is just absolutely phenomenal here. Top Cougars with some good team plays as well, but again, Top Cougars still do seem like they've got a little bit of a 1v1 mindset. As you can see, Toxic trying to take down two players in one go out of midfield. They've got to start linking. If they start hitting some of these passing plays, they might just be unstoppable.
And the conversational point that brought up before, I still completely relevant in this series to see what they can do in the team play. And I think once I, again, agree with you, that's why you're so smart. That's why you're carrying this whole operation. If they are able to start to play the ball off each other and start to get something going collectively, I think they stand significantly better chance. And watching, what happened in Game 2 of their semifinals versus Game 3, they did that. They flipped that switch, as the proverbial saying will go. And they just, all of a sudden, figured it out. They put up 5 goals in 2.5 minutes. And now here we are 4 minutes into overtime. And nothing has given on either side. Small mistakes, as you said, but nobody really is full committing and really wanting to take that edge because they know how important a Game 1 victory is. With the double touch.
Oh my! Oh. You gotta be kidding me. There's no way we're still continuing. What kind of save was that out of Vela? At this point, Pastizzi deserved to win it just off that save alone because Top Cougars basically had a dagger that somehow just got deflected there. What on earth just happened? Pastizzi keeping themselves into this game, and with about 30 seconds from double the time, basically. 5 minutes of regular play and then 5 minutes of overtime. I mean, listen, if we have all 5 games go this long, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but oh, wait, that's not how this ends. Oh, no, that's how this ends. It indeed was scenario number 2. One defensive error, and that's all it took.
Yeah, just couple of demolitions going down the road, and that's about all it took. Almost 5 extra minutes. We hit 4:38. The 3-2 final score. Top Cougars taking game number 1, and a fantastic back and forth. You know, getting virtually 2 games worth of time in the first game of this grand finals in a best of 5. That's pretty much on par what we would expect. And between these two teams, I think is really not surprising at all. We take some look at some of these replays from that first 9 minutes and 38 seconds of the grand final, powered by Microsoft ATL. And it just started out with Jake starting to make a difference. And it feels like a whole series ago, we were talking about what can Jake do in this one because of how long the overtime took.
Yeah, and I mean, really, this is one of these things where he did a great job in this game. There really isn't much fault to be pressed upon anyone on Pastisi. It's just, unfortunately, one error is the end of it. And there's a reason we call that out so early in overtime, because it more often than not, this is how overtimes like this end. As much as everybody loves to be that hero, loves to be that guy who hits, oh, the most phenomenal shot you've ever seen, even those phenomenal shots apparently don't make the back of the net. We saw that from the save on the side of Pastisi here, is that it really is, more often than not, a team makes a small error, it gets capitalized upon, and that's just what it is. My question for you, though, Caribou, is does that affect the outcome of the series overall? Because Pastisi, now, the momentum is not only against them, it is so far out of their favor, it's got to be difficult to keep yourself into this one mentally.
All right, now hear me out. As we get into game number 2 of this grand finals. Prior to the series starting, I was actually kind of leaning to a 3-2 for Pastisi, but your conversation convinced me to send it the other way to that Top Cougars. I was like, yeah, wait, yeah, he's right. Top Cougars are really good. All 3 of them are really good. I think that because if it's the other way around, if this is, you know, the semifinal matchup we just saw, where it's the best of 3, and, you know, Vigil's team is in position where Pastisi is now, and it's NA versus EU, then I think I'm still going to go Top Cougars. But because the fact that we're on EU servers, both sides, I think Pastisi has all of the ingredients that they need to come back and pull off a quote-unquote upset in this grand final series. Now, whether they're going to be able to do that or not is a whole different conversation. But I think Pastisi has everything in front of them. They control their own destiny, even being down a game. But it does, again, build that momentum to Top Cougars, where being up that game, playing a whole extra time, it's kind of demoralizing to Pastisi, because it's like, we played 4.5 minutes. We didn't get a goal, and we gave up 1 off of a small mistake. Like, that really sucks. That's kind of hard to bounce back from, but you just got to hope that coming into game 2, clean slate, bounce back, and this is nothing. It's just another casual day of Rocket League.
You really got to hope so for this team's sake, because as much as we have slated this one to be an absolute classic battle, considering how many times they've met here in the finals before, it still has the potential to not be that if a team just can't seem to, you know, pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get ready here. And unfortunately, that's kind of what we're seeing right now at Pastisi. Things are going from bad to worse, and that goal was looking a little bit inevitable. The deflation after game number 2 after game number 1 has rolled its way into game number 2, and Caribou, I'm a little bit worried right now. If Pastisi do not find a goal within the next, I'd say, minute or 2, they might have just let the momentum entirely run away from them.
Yeah, and I think that is a phenomenal point in the sense of, you know, the combination between what we both say. And, you know, 4.5 minutes overtime, you don't score. Now you're 2 minutes into this game, you still haven't scored. You've given up 2. What a redirect from Toxic, just jumping in front of the defense to put that to the top 90. Incredible read to be able to get in front of Jake right there. This is fantastic for the Top Cougars side. Pastisi, I wholeheartedly agree. They got to score. They have to break this seal, because going 5+ minutes in a series without scoring starts to really wear down on the mental.
It starts to get really difficult. At a certain point, you're kind of just asking yourself, what on earth does it take to get through the defense of the opponents? And, I mean, at a certain point, I got to imagine Top Cougars were probably saying the same thing. After that save we saw in overtime, which, in my opinion, was save of the day. Never mind, that save of the day. Jake one-ups me as I'm speaking about it. Regardless, that's kind of the thing, is that Top Cougars are facing this defense right now, but they're still finding ways to score. So if Top Cougars can find a way to break the defense, Pastisi, there's absolutely a chance for you guys to do the same.
Yeah, As I say, they're in complete control of their own destiny. It's just a matter of can they step up to the occasion? Are they going to be able to handle this? We have reached and passed the halfway point of this one, coming up on 2:15 to play. Still that 2-0 insurance lead for the Cougars. Looking for Pastizi to try to get a clearance and try to put a possession together. We've given so much importance on setting the pacing, controlling the tempo, and maintaining possession in this game, in this series, in this bracket. And right now, Top Cougars are checking all three of those boxes, and they've done everything right, regardless of how well the defense is playing Pastizi. Pastizi just can't find their way to find a relief valve, to find something going the other side.
Yeah, and you can start to see in the way that they're playing right now. They're rushing the ball rather aggressively, which is leaving Top Cougars with a lot of space to work with. And oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. Pastizi with what is by far their best chance all series, and they put two of them off of each post. Caribou, I don't really know what else to say here. I might just need you to take the mic away from me because I'm going to have some not so nice words coming out for Pastizi in a second.
I guess I just didn't realize that this was a 4v3, that Top Cougars have enlisted their uprights as a teammate, because that was just utterly rude on behalf of Pastizi's offensive attack. Just missing off of the framework twice is a heartbreaker. And again, it's another thing that adds into the mental, the tilt, where it's like, come on, we're that close. That ball should have gone in. They had a great spike, they had a great putback, they had the open net. They still can't do it. Like, as you said, what do we have to do to be able to score a goal? It's going on 10 minutes now. They have not scored a goal. Bungie trying to break that goose egg before we hit the end of game number 2, but still with the 2-0 lead for Top Cougars. If Top Cougars take this one, that's virtually all she wrote here. And it's going to be a long shot for Pastizi to be able to bounce back in a 2-0 series deficit, but they've got some work to do.
Yeah, they've got a lot of work to do right now. Like you said, I mean, it's one of these things where I didn't even notice that. It's not that they haven't scored in quite some time. It's that they haven't gotten a single goal in 10 minutes. They haven't been able to respond since their goal in the first game. That alone should really show you how much Top Cougars have kind of just drained this team. Because Pastizi are a team that we never really thought that they would just, go out and just no longer fight. But it really looks right now that they're very flat-footed. They're very hesitant, and they just don't seem to be in this series. Top Cougars, a team which they could do this to a lot of teams, but I just didn't think that it would be against this team. I really did not think that of all teams Top Cougars would dominate, it would be here in the finals against Pastizi.
Yeah, and just looking at it, again, on the scoreboard, it's not a convincing, it's a 2-0, but where you look at the gameplay, the heat maps, it is, because they spent all of the game on the other side. Take a look at how much time they spent in these highlights, brought to you by Microsoft ATL. This is a team that is just controlling the game because the ball is across midfield virtually the whole time, save a couple of one-off opportunities, and that redirect from Toxic was honestly disgusting. That was just a great read there to be able to jump in front of Jake. But that chance right there, that's as good as it's going to get in that game. And missing twice is just devastating. It's heartbreaking. It is tilting. And it's like, come on, man. Like, give me something. God, give me a break. I should have had a goal. It should be 2-1 right now. And then maybe they bounce back. Maybe that's the breaker they need to be able to get some momentum built up for them. But now, they're 10-plus minutes without a goal. They're down 2-0 in a grand final series. What's their answer, Matt? You're the smart one. What's their answer?
You got to stop doing that, my friend, because at a certain point, you're going to put way too much faith in me and my teeny tiny brain that does not have the statistics, smart analysis thing that you keep referring to. But I appreciate it. In my opinion, honestly, though, the one thing they need is a goal. That sounds as simple as ever, but it really is one of these things where a single goal might just change the momentum. We saw this earlier. That cross-court pinch goal led that team to victory. I'm trying to remember which team it was. I want to say it was, I think, round number 3 against either Sheesh or maybe a Parody. But whatever team it was, they got a goal, got themselves back into the game, and forced a game number 3. This is a little bit harder because they're down by 2, but get a goal, get some momentum, and force this series to continue. Top Cougars, you are a good team, but Pastizi, you are still in this one by far.
Yeah, and I still wholeheartedly hang on to the fact that Pastizi's in control of their own destiny. You look at what Smokes has done, and the credit that we've given Smokes, as I said, 17 different rosters and 10 different events. That's not a real stat, but the one that you see right there is 78% win rate in the CMG Rocket League. That's incredible. Of course, this event in partnership with CMG, that's the host of the bracket and putting this event together, 78% is more than 50, and when you're more than 50% winning, that means you're good at the game and good in competitive standpoint. And as Smokes, as we've alluded to countless times, has made multiple grand finals, has made an impression here on all of our ATL Opens. He's pretty good at Rocket League.
Yeah, the crazy part about it, I don't know if we've mentioned this here tonight, as much as Smokes is an absolutely unbelievable Rocket League player, he's also a professional Call of Duty player as well. With over $20,000 in earnings in Call of Duty, he basically can just do whatever he wants in pretty much any regard. Even in Rocket League, where he's been pulling in a ton of really good teammates, he somehow still seems to shine every single time. It doesn't matter who he brings in, he is still one of the highlight players for the team. And in a team where I was pretty much only familiar, or at least more familiar with Kiernan and Toxic, he's still managed to be a just unbelievably good player on the pitch. So I gotta give insane credit to everybody on Top Cougars right now, because they're all doing a lot. But also, as you can see, it's not like his opponents are anything less. Vela actually has a higher win percentage than Smokes.
That is very interesting. Just a simple little one-up. Anything you can do, I can do 1% better. Vela with 79% CMG Rocket League win rate is insane to be that good consistently. As we've talked about, you know, Galletti made multiple finals, and we saw Smokes with multiple +1s in the 2v2s making the finals as well. These two players just exude talent. And, you know, Vela playing with Bungie most of the time, Smokes just doing it with a whole slew in an incredibly deep roster that he can play with, is just continuing to showcase talent on both sides. And, you know, as I say, it's not, I'm not going to say that, you know, Top Cougars are just heavily favorited in this series. Granted, they're defending champions. Smoke's going to showcase why. Got a 78% win rate right there. Gets the first goal, 2 minutes to play. So it took us a while to get here, but that also means it's over 13 minutes that Pastisi have yet to score a goal. So Vela and Bungie, the dynamic duo themselves, really need to step up here and find out what the answer is to break that zero, because it's been far too long since they've seen some fancy explosions out of the goal.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing that's not going to work. Passing to the other team, definitely not going to give yourselves any sort of momentum in your favor. Vela tries to get in the way of that ball there, and as a result, he just passes it to the other team. But speaking of passing it to the other team here, Toxic with a powerful touch to the center, and Jake's just going to read that one perfectly. Both teams setting each other up perfectly, and what I thought was going to be a incredibly influential for Top Cougars is a race within moments.
It only took like 13, maybe 14 minutes, but they finally got their goal. That's all they needed, and now maybe that is going to be enough to start to build up their momentum, right? This is the answer. Like, okay, we got one. That's where it starts. You just got to get one. You get one goal, you get one game. Unfortunately, your back's against the wall in a best of 5, or you're down 2-0, but 90 seconds to play here. Trying to see some signs of life from Pastisi. Top Cougars on the other side, already champions of qualifier number 1, looking to repeat here as we come down to the final 75 seconds to see if they're going to get the game number 4, or if Top Cougars are just going to do it again. And Smokes is trying to say, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it right now.
Oh my word, the back half today, unfortunately, just has not been up to par for Pastisi here. Once again, 3 players all ready for the save, but none of them call it out. And, well, triple commit like that, all it does is pinch it into your own net a little bit faster. Pastisi have got to try and calm themselves down here. Every goal they've let in so far here has just been because of panic. And, oh no, I think they're going to let in another one here. No, they do make the save. Vela clears that one out, thankfully, but no follow-up touch. No. Oh no, Top Cougars really taking full advantage of the panic that is setting in for Pastisi.
Yeah, certainly starting to kind of come to terms with fate at hand. 3-1 now, under a minute to play. Starting to recognize that, hey, this one might be just a little bit out of touch. There's still enough time here where they could find something, and they're certainly not going to be giving up here in a Grand Championship for qualifier number 2. Still looking for their play back. It only got the 1 goal in the last 2.5 games of time. Well, 3 games now, but looking to see if they can put 1 more. Try to close this gap before we get down. 40 seconds to play. They're on the right side of the field. Bella's going to get the pitch up. Toxic will get the save, so there's no backboard play. Bungie keeps it in play. Vela will spike it down, looking for Jake, who unfortunately gets a mistouch and sends it skyward instead of towards the net. Vela gets another touch to keep it on this side, but under 30 to play. Smoke's going to take this one. They're going the other way, and now they're just going to try to hold possession and waste as much time as they can because Top Cougars are on the fringe of another first-place victory.
And I think they're about to take it with just about 10 seconds left. It's possible for Steezy, but they need something unreal to make its way through, and Bungie will not get that. What would have been a nice musty flick is denied, and well, at this point, my biggest thing is you called this earlier. I can't believe it took me this long to say this, but you actually technically did call this, Caribou. Vela and company were the team you said could tilt themselves out of a series within one game, and guess what? They unfortunately did that after game number 1 with an heartbreaking overtime. They were never able quite to recover, and as a result, Top Cougars take their second qualifier win in a row. They've already made over $400 just in qualifiers alone. That's unreal.
It's just another day at the office. You have $400+ in a week's time playing a couple days of Rocket League. Yeah, it is what it is. It's just nothing crazy for them. But looking at what we can see from this series of highlights, of course, brought to you by Microsoft ATL, it was all one side for about the last 18 minutes of competition. Of course, we had a 9.5-minute game in number 1. We went into extra time, but a great shootout, a great battle between two great teams in that opening game. But after that, it was just, unfortunately, the taxation on the team was too much, and Steezy fell short there in game 1, and it just carried to game 2 and game 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to show us in the replays here, and honestly, probably for the better for Pastizi, but that miss they had at the end of overtime in Game 1 was just so detrimental to the confidence of the team. They tried to recover from there on out, but unfortunately, when Toxic can hit shots like that, it's really hard to get yourself back into a series, and they just never really were able to do so. Shots like this going off the post were kind of just the epitome of what was happening for the team overall. They'd come so very close, but when it came down to it, small mistakes like touches to their own half, like we saw at Vela, just led them down a path that was too panicked, too misorganized, and as a result, Smokes and company take the win.
And looking so good doing so. Back-to-back champions, qualifier 1 and number 2. Take a look at the bracket of how we got there tonight. Of course, Sheesh dropping out against Top Cougars, who beat Flying Freaks initially. Pastizi beating Parity to get to the finals after they beat Seaside. After they beat Team Scuffed, rather. Parity beating Seaside in that opening one. But of course, 8 great teams. There is another opportunity for any of these teams that didn't qualify. Those teams in the semis all did, because Top Cougars, as we said, already won last week. There's another chance to qualify, though, and it is the last chance. 6 teams now have punched their ticket to the grand finals in 2 weeks' time. 2 more teams will try to qualify next week, Thursday, same time, same place, 225, also up for grabs. And all things considered, I would not be surprised, even though we've seen Smokes win both times, they might just be back for number 3.
I would honestly be very surprised if they did not show up next week. That being said, I'd also be surprised if we don't see some more familiar faces. Next week is going to be the last one. Like you said, it's going to be the culmination of all of these efforts, and we might even see some appearances by some of our favorite pro players. Shout out to Mektos and Leaks. We'd like to see you guys here again, but we're going to have to find out. That is it for here today. On behalf of myself and Confused Caribou, we want to thank you guys for coming through here to the Atlanta Community Open, powered by CMG and brought to you in partnership with Microsoft ATL. Thank you so much for everything that you guys have done here today. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your night.